Hi, good afternoon and good evening to all the distinguished speakers, attendees, and the people who are going to watch us on our social media. It really gives us a great pleasure hosting second edition of GWFM's Women Leadership Chapter event. In fact, we have been doing it offline pre-pandemic multiple times. Since last 5 years, we have been doing. And virtually, this is the second year, especially when we started this as like a separate chapter or women leadership forum, we call this as, where we get WFM, HR, and DNI professionals. What I see is Women's Day is not just celebrated on the day we all celebrate, it is celebrated on every day. In fact, when I seen my experience in my career, as an HR and also WFM later, I see that the women leaders are right fit to take care of the workforce or talent or people. They're made for that. In fact, they're the right fitted resources for the organization. So we have a great pride having all the distinguished leaders who come from various companies, and we're going to have this session for next 10 hours covering ANZ, APAC, EMEA, and also West. We have 34 speakers identified who are going to share their thoughts, experiences, and also the kind of initiatives that what they're really doing in their organization and also like outside the organization. Truly gives us a pride and privilege to have all of you. Thank you so much for taking your time out to be with us. We're going to have this event is something memorable and create huge takeaways, and where the rest of the world can really learn from each one of you. Kind of thoughts, insights, what you're going to share is going to be very significant. And looking forward to listen to each one of you. With this, we welcome all of you to GWFM's Women Leadership event. We wish today is Happy Women's Day. Again, as I said, it's not done on that day only. In fact, this is done every day. Like, we celebrate Women's Day on every day. With this, thank you so much for all of you taking your time out. Looking forward to listening to all the great leaders out here. Thank you. With this, I invite Pato, co-founder of GWFM, to take the sessions forward. Thank you all.
Thank you, Shiva. Sometimes the mind is kind of getting into these lows. I generally start feeling that let's stop talking about diversity at all. Because one, the word is misguiding us. And two, we don't actually care about it. Our brains don't care about it. But as the mind becomes tranquil, you start looking at the world, and there you see the woman. I see the woman in my house. I see women outside. And then I think, what is a woman's place in this modern world? Justin Collins' words read, I rebel against this question. Though so many of my peers ask it, the inherent bias in the inquiry seems invisible to so many of them. They consider themselves progressive because they are willing to challenge many of the assumptions of the past. They ignore the greater assumption that a place for women must be defined and set forth to begin with. Half of the population must somehow be reduced to the role arrived at by a single conversation. No matter how broad that role is, it will be by nature a reduction from the infinite variety that is womanhood. GWFM celebrates Women's Day, an evening with global leaders from HR and WFM from EMEA, APAC, ANZ, and India. GWFM will felicitate leaders for their unflinching passion and support to the cause of diversity, inclusion, and gender equality. Thank you all for joining us, and I invite you to join this roundtable and listen to the keynote speeches that being delivered by Suraj Chetri and Mr. Tripathi, and hope you have a powerful evening and give us all the power that you gather. To all you ladies, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, Shakti Rupena Sangasthita, Namastasya, 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 namo namah. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here. We'll first invite Suraj to deliver the keynote address. Suraj is head of HR at Airbus India. Suraj completed his bachelor's in sociology from Ranchi University and PGDPM from Xavier Institute of Social Science, Ranchi, where he secured third rank in the class of 1991-93. He started his career with Bata India in 1993 and as assistant manager person in the retail North Zonal Office at New Delhi, was responsible, amongst other activities, for IR and T&D. During his tenure with Bata, he was certified as a sales trainer and an inquiry officer. In 1996, he took up a job with Bosch India, based out of Bangalore. During his tenure as a manager at Bosch, he headed the recruitment in T&D and was deputed to their global HQ in Stuttgart, Germany for 2 years, responsible for intercultural sensitization. He attained a master's practitioner's degree in NLP, team workshop moderator, and was certified as an intercultural trainer. He was also recognized for his contribution by the NHRD Network Bangalore chapter as an achiever under the Young HR Manager category, and was a part of the team that won the Best HR Practices Company Award from NHRD. In 2003, he left them to join General Motors as General Manager HR, heading the HR function as the Tech Center, India. In 2006, he joined Textron India in Bangalore as Director Human Resources and was instrumental in setting up the entire HR infrastructure. In November 2008, Suraj was given the additional responsibility of Deputy MD for the Global Technology Center at Bangalore and inducted as a member of the board. In 2011, Suraj joined Airbus and is now responsible for India and South Asia as the Director HR. He was also the national representative for the Airbus Corporate Foundation in 2015, when he was conferred with the Gold Karmavir Chakra and the Rex Karmavir Global Fellowship for his contribution towards the biodiversity program by iCongo in association with the UN. He was also recognized as the 100 most impactful CSR leaders in 2017 and 18 by World CSR Day. I'm thankful to Suraj for agreeing and accepting our invitation to deliver the opening keynote on this glorious day where we celebrate women. Thank you, Suraj. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Parthoda, Dr. Shiva, my colleagues. And you know, sometimes had it not been for Mr. Tripathi, Parthoda, and Dr. Shiva, I would have felt like a thorn amongst all the roses in such events. And of course, thanks to the space that has been taken in diversity by women, it kind of by default, you know, it makes me diverse amongst all of y'all. And when one looks at the concept of diversity, one also needs to understand that diversity may mean different things in different situations and circumstances. Now that Parthoda is actually told you my age, I can very proudly say that if there is a startup, an employee like me would definitely be at the heart of diversity. Honestly, like Parthoda said, I am done discussing the question about women in leadership, how it translates into increased, employee retention, satisfaction, productivity, greater innovation, better products, better decision making, etc., etc., etc. And this is not something that we need to prove in today's world. I think we've got data, we've got research. Our own organizations are testimonies that this is no longer a question. And of course, for us, we see from our experiences, even at Airbus, that this is no longer a question for discussion. You know, sometimes when I think about the word diversity, it means nothing to me. That might come as a shock, and it is sometimes a very loosely used word all across the world today. Um, and guys like me who are diversity champions need to be blamed for the part we have played in hyping this word. But I think what is required is focus and vision is absolutely important. Diversity cannot exist outside the whole business context that we are working in. So what I mean by that is, of course, we need to look at diversity not like a magic wand that is the cure of all diseases. And respected people who've joined us and are listening to us, please don't go back and said, hey, this is what we heard in the conference and we're going to implement it. Because if it is not done in the right way, it will not be, advantageous, but it could be like a Pandora's box that you have opened, and you will hope and pray thereafter that, oh, wish I had not started on this journey of diversity and diversity hiring and things like that. At Airbus, like I told you, vision and the link with the global purpose of business is important. At Airbus, we want to become the leading employer of choice with a brand reputation, not only for our products, but also for our inclusive and safe environment, as well as a diverse working force, thus creating a value not only for our customers, but for society and for the employees by and large. Now, for this to be done, inclusiveness is key. It's the mantra that makes diversity work. The whole thing about an equitable workplace, inclusivity, belongingness is, it reminds me of a concept that they have in Japan, which is called nemawashi. It is basically that what you need to do is prepare the ground well before even the seeds are sown. Because if you do not prepare the ground well, and I'm talking about organizations, the culture that you have within, the mindset of the leaders, how others think about the different diverse, I would say, people that we will bring into the organization, it is not going to work. So once you've cultivated and prepared the ground, then when you sow even one seed, you can reap a harvest of 1,000. But if not done properly, then, like I told you, it's like opening up a Pandora's box. Once you've prepared the organization, then only will diversity of any form translate into growth. It'll translate into development. It'll translate into success in business, great products, satisfying customers, innovation, creativity, and the whole 9 yards that we talk about. And then you can bring in diversity. You can make the best teams. They could be in areas of gender, nationality, age, culture, differently abled, or any other orientation to life. And of course, this is like a journey, I told you. And the journey, I think, in every organization starts by educating the employees and the managers in what they need to do, how they need to behave. But before that itself, it should be the philosophy and culture within the organization. Of course, I know you are going to talk about unconscious bias, so I will not talk too much about that. But I think the journey from unconscious bias to conscious bias to unconscious unbiased is also very important. And I think you also, over the years, need to make it a business objective, not something that HR is pushing or it is seen as an HR agenda, because that doesn't go well, for which probably you'll have to have business champions that drive it more fervently than HR would as a community within an organization. Then let your diverse population that you have speak for itself internally and externally. And we've seen great results as we've gone on this journey. Over the past 4 years, from where somewhere we were on gender diversity at around 12%. Today we are at 25%, being technology organization. But a word of caution here: diversity is not about the outward appearance that is visible, like the color of your skin, race, gender, but it is also about the invisible, as to how you are wired between the two ears. That is more important. That diversity is more important than the diversity of what you see. What you don't see is more important, and that is what we will look at. And when you are hiring people for different demographics, it may help you increase diversity, but will it add to your ways of working or not is something that you need to look at. What I mean is, you hire diverse candidates because you want to have a heterogeneous mix that can work together. But if everyone that is hired starts thinking in the same pattern, then you lose the advantage of diversity in any organization. Look beyond. I would encourage you to look beyond race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and look at things like world experiences. What culture do they bring within the organization? Their beliefs about technology, their role in business, and if you would have caught it, I'm talking about culture add is as much about how a candidate looks at the world than how the world looks at them. And moving forward, I think this aspect, this concept and idea around the diversity portfolio is going to undergo a paradigm shift with the males. I talk about the millennials joining the organization. It's going to be a key aspect for them in choosing where they work, not because of diversity of sake of diversity, but what they're looking at is at a cognitive level of diversity in ideas and thoughts, perspectives, and the acceptance of those within the organization versus, like I told you, what is visible on the outside. For them, it will be a mix of experiences, identity, ideas, and options versus integrating people with various diversities. Males do not have the patience. If they do not see this within organizations, they're going to leave. And that is why it is also important to have an inclusive culture whereby you can integrate them into the fabric of the organization. To succeed, to attract and retain them, I would say that again, I was talking about Nemawashi, where you'll have to prepare the whole organization. You will have to bring cultural sensitization. And if there is no inclusiveness within organizations, diversity counts for zero. If you do not feel included, the whole idea of bringing about a diverse workforce will not work for you. I will give you 3 examples of how we do it in quick succession, and then I will close with my final comments. What we do at Airbus is we've got diversity champions who are in business, are passionate, and drive this rather than HR. And we've seen great results when business themselves have brought into the idea, they are sold to the idea that, yes, diversity for me works in my team, rather than HR telling them, hey guys, there's a target that we need to achieve. There is a number and a quota that we need to fill. It's not going to work that way. And we've seen it. The other good thing is try to sense check and see how is inclusiveness within your organization. I'll give you a quick example. What we did within Airbus is we just made a tree and we put green and brown leaves, which employees could pick up and hang on the tree the way they felt. Whether they felt inclusive, then they would put a green leaf on the tree. And if they did not, they would put a brown leaf on the tree. And then there was a box that they could give their comments upon. What should we do to see how we can bring everyone together? That itself was a learning experience for us. And it was challenging because it was open, transparent, visible for everyone to see. But I think those small and simple initiatives to sense check where you are on your inclusiveness journey, because inclusiveness is everything, will yield great results. The third thing that we talk about, of course, is balance for business. What we mean by that is we have common groups where we have all diverse employees. We have men, we have women, other diversities, where they come together and focus on issues that make a difference to the organization. It's not a group of women talking about what should change, but it's a common network that we've started, and they focus on things like gender neutrality in all our publications at Airbus, masking of resumes, job advertisements, and various other projects globally, so that together, when men and women together and the other diverse portfolios together work, the results is wonderful and beautiful for everyone to see. I'll leave you with my final thoughts that we at Airbus have just scratched the surface, and there is a lot to learn. And that is why I'm so happy that I have my colleague Prema participating, because we would like to learn from what you have implemented, see if we can do the same. And I think learning together, teaching one another, sharing of experiences, and thanks to GWFM, I think is the best way that we can be role models in this area of diversity. And programs like this is kind of like a safe sandbox that we can play in and see what could work for us and what could not. I will end with saying that recently I was in an Economic Times conference, and they asked me, Suraj, when do you think you would stop supporting such initiatives? And my answer to that was never. It's an ongoing initiative, and it needs to be done at all levels and at all stages in the career of an employee. And probably, I added and said that we may stop once it becomes an integral part of the DNA of the organization. And this is our focus at Airbus, and we are on this journey today. We are not there, we are learning, but from 12 to 25, successful organization, we are learning fast. And I would be happy to take any help and any support that we get from experts, organizations like yours that are listening, who are working with a passion in this field. And I think last of all, passion and commitment from us diversity champions is important. And for me, I'm blessed with that. When I look at my workforce in the HR department, 85% gender diverse employees. I look at home, I'm the only exception, 2 daughters and 1 wife, happily married. And I think it puts that enthusiasm and passion within me that I could contribute towards this cause, having breathed and lived diversity all my, like Dada said, 53 years, 54 years of my life. Thank you very much for your patient listening. And I wish all of y'all a very successful conference. And like Dada said, last words, I think it is Women's Day every day. You ask me, I will tell you that without blinking an eye. Thank you very much. And back to Patada and Dr. Shiva.
Thank you, Suraj. Thank you so much. On behalf of GWFM, let me express my paramount gratitude to you for delivering the keynote address. It was a thoroughly enlightening and informative session for, I guess, all the listeners. And I consider Airbus as an outstanding organization And I express to you and Airbus our sincere gratitude for you attending the event and for delivering the outstanding keynote. You have always been a great support for GWFM, and though you are younger, but you are an inspiration, Suraj. Thanks for being Suraj, and stay shining all your life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
We will now move on to the attraction of the day, that is the Women Leaders Roundtable. And let me invite the moderator, Devjani Roy. Well, Devjani has about 25 years of experience in human resources, and with hardcore functional experience across companies such as Nalco, Bharti, HCL Tech, Bentley Systems, Kuoni, SRL Diagnostics, etc. Till March 2019, the last full-time assignment was with SRL Diagnostics as CHRO, where she was the HR strategic partner at the board. With a degree in organization behavior from FMS Delhi University, over her career span, she has earned an established reputation of being one of the most progressive HR business leaders, having provided transformative people leadership across industries. Awarded many a times amongst the business and HR fraternities as one of the country's most dynamic HR managers, Devjani has lately branched out on her own and chosen the advisory and mentor role for herself going forward. Currently being the Chief HR Advisor to Mind Your Fleet, a reputed software startup in the transportation space, Devjani runs her own boutique HR solutions and advisory firm called Beneath the Wings Venture LLP. Her specific areas of consulting work spans culture audits, business restructuring, talent management, employee experience, POSH, leadership essentials, DEI, and employee wellness. She is a certified L&D professional, besides being accredited on competency mapping, NLP, and executive coaching from MICPI. Devjani is also a visiting professor to a number of reputed B schools, besides being on the jury of a large number of schools and colleges in their incubation labs and boot camps. Devjani is an adjunct faculty to the School of Business, Modi University, where she teaches HR analytics. She's also a mentor and visiting faculty at Vedika School of Women Scholars, affiliated to Ashoka University. Devjani, besides the TEDx, is also a sought-after speaker at various forums and author, a life skills trainer, an education activist, as well as wellness coach and mentor to a large number of students in the current academic space. Social mentoring is Devjani's current passion, both in the corporate and academic domains, with a specific focus on women. Welcome to the roundtable, Devjani, and the stage is set. So it's time that you took over. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dada. It's always heartening to be part of the GWFM roundtables and all other conclaves that are so well curated and brought to a grand audience with the best of the eclectic minds across the globe. So welcome one and all. It's an absolute pleasure to be amongst all of you and to be hosting this part of the roundtable. Gives me, enough adrenaline rush for today, I guess. Having said that, I'm not going to be wasting any further time. I'd love to know, and for the benefit of the audience, I'd love them to know each one of you slightly better. If you could just briefly introduce yourselves for about a minute and a half. The name and the title is self-explanatory. Please go ahead, starting with Deepthi, I think, who I find right next to me on the panel, and we'll go through each one of you as we end. Please, Deepthi, all yours.
Thanks, Devjani. I'm part of a new age BPO called Taskas. We're about 2 years old in India and about 13 years in the world. I head HR for India, And prior to this, I've been with companies such as Aon Hewitt, Dentsu International, Genpact. And yeah, it's been an all in all BPO experience. And when I look at the topic here, equality is something that I'd love to talk about, whether that's the right word or we want to use something different. So yeah, that's why I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Deepthi. Wouldn't have expected anything else from such a beautifully well-groomed lady like you, coming from the Hewitts of the world. Thank you. Lovely beginning. Move over to Anise Joseph. Anise, Mike is right before you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me for this roundtable. My name is Anise Joseph. I am part of the Global Diversity and Inclusion Office at SAP. I focus on consulting and advisory for all D&I leaders at SAP. We have a very large federation system of diversity and inclusion leaders and champions, and I work towards really taking strategy to execution in different parts of the world and different parts of the business function. As a professional, I'm a hardcore HR person, been in the industry for more than 20 years. Worked with companies such as IBM, Goldman Sachs, Wipro Technologies, Thomson Reuters, and SAP. It's been my huge blessing that my passion is also the work that I do in the space of diversity and inclusion. I've dabbled my hands in many parts of the demographical aspects of diversity like gender, persons with disability, LGBTQ+, cultures. And my latest inputs has been in the space of cross-generational inclusion. So when you guys get the time, please do read up on the paper that we just got published. Otherwise, as a person, I am very closely connected to the social justice in the world. My spare time goes into mentoring other women in the field, whatever they would like to aspire to, and also see as communities, how can we really make the world a better place, whether it is addressing domestic violence or just talking about rights of children and women. So that's me, and very happy to be here, very eager to learn from all of you.
Thank you, Anise. Absolutely brilliant. What a cohort this is going to be. I'm already excited. Yasmin, a very dear friend, a part of the fraternity for quite long. Lovely seeing you here, Yasmin. That's you.
Thank you, Deepjani, and likewise, lovely seeing you. And it's always great to share the stage with you. And hi to all my co-panelists here. Thank you, GWFM, for having me here today for this roundtable. I currently head HR for NextGen India, which is healthcare US multinational, as a vice president and head HR. It's been over 3 years that I've been associated with NextGen. Prior to this, I was heading HR for Informatica, and prior to that, I was at Infosys for the longest time, which is 10 years. So it's been an incredible journey all along. The topic today, like Deepthi said, resonated so well with me. It's not about just equality just for the sake of it, but for a sustainable tomorrow. I think it's a very carefully crafted title for this roundtable. So thanks, Patada and Dr. Shiva. At NextGen, we are very serious about not just diversity and inclusion, but also diversity, inclusion, equity, and belongingness, where it's really part of the charter. So we'll talk more in the roundtable, where we have the employee resource groups really playing the frontline role for us. Personally, married, 2 kids right now in school, so thank God school's opened, but summer holidays are back soon. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And we are one company which is permanently declared work from anywhere, and that helps all our parents have some routine. So I'll stop at that, and I look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Yasmin, And with that, we move to the next lady, Radhika. Radhika was quick to point out about the unconscious bias already, blooming behind all of us. Radhika, I'll have you speak on it rather than me tell. The mic's all yours, please.
Thank you, Dajani. I was wondering whether I should put my background or not. Or maybe I should make it neutral, beige, white, or something. But yeah, interesting. I am Radhika Naranmalia. I've been with KPMG for almost 8 years now, and I head their resource management function. I actually started the function in the firm. We grew the function, we did change management, where a lady from outside came from nowhere, didn't know anything, and suddenly took over the resources of the firm, saying, okay, we are going to manage them. So a lot of change management, mindset change, etc. Ironically, I did the exact same thing with Deloitte India before KPMG. And then I was briefly with Hewitt that time, now Aon Hewitt, as well as some other firms like Microsoft. So yeah, I've had a very interesting journey, almost 20 years of work experience with the resource management field. Topic today, and sometimes I keep challenging myself because we all have some subconscious biases which we are all so used to and accustomed to. We grew up in where we were taught that women do this or men do that. It's younger generation challenges us for practically everything and every day. And I remember reading that tweet from Amitabh Bachchan's granddaughter saying, if some guests come the door, my mother expects me to play host and not my brother. And that was so interesting that children of this age challenge every thought which normally would come naturally to women or men or family. But yeah, I think we all need to be very open to these inclusion and diversity and fluidity rather. So very happy to be here on this forum and look forward to expressing all our thoughts and learning from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Radhika. That was wonderful. I now move on to Neeti Mahajan from HSBC Malaysia. Hello, Neeti. Let's hear from you.
Thank you so much, first and foremost, for having me here. And so for myself, I am currently a Global Chief Admin Officer for our wealth and personal banking business globally. I have been with HSBC for 20 plus years. So there, I don't think I can compare to Anis or anybody else who have had experience of many different organizations. But within HSBC, I have moved around quite a bit, started my career with payment operations, almost did payment operations work across a couple of different geographies for 10 years, and then have taken on roles such as regional head of rangering, center director for Malaysia. And I think one that connects me back to GWFM is my previous role as global head of workforce management for HSBC as well. Very happy to be here. And the topic that is close to my heart is on, I think, gender diversity. Some of the work that I have been doing alongside everything else that happens in the day-to-day is around bringing women back from career break and from sabbaticals, because it is fact of life that a lot of women drop out at different stages of their life due to varied reasons, and how we can construct programs of returnship that actually brings them back into workforce at the same place, at the same stage where they have left, rather than go back into something which is 2 or 3 steps downwards. So that's me. Thank you very much.
That was lovely hearing you. Thank you, Neeti. With that, I move on to Editha Moja. I hope I've got the name right. Please, apologies up front. Of course, the syllables could be slightly different. Hi, Editha.
No worries at all. Thank you very much, Devjani. First of all, I would like to thank GWFM for inviting me to this forum. Very important and still very relevant. I am currently one of the leaders of WFM. I lead the Asia Pacific at TELUS International for over 1 year now. I have been with the WFM for 17 years now. Been privileged to work different roles, and now I'm responsible for supporting large group of WFM professionals within our organization. I am also a parent of a beautiful 6-year-old girl. I am happy that we're having these discussions. I think it's really important that we talk about diversity and inclusion, because I think it's a way for us to pave the way for our children for the future, and that's something that really sets us up for sustainability. So again, thank you for this opportunity. I really feel privileged. Thank you.
Thank you, Editha. Lovely to have you amongst us. Can I make a request for all those who haven't yet had their introductions? Could I request you to please turn on your television, your camera screen, sorry, so that, we're very sure that you're right there. Okay, thank you so much. And Francia Sales, can we hear you now?
Sure. I'm glad to be part of today's session. My name is Francia Salas. I'm based in Manila, Philippines. I have been supporting contact center operations for more than 18 years. I'm currently the head of the contact center of Manulife Business Process Solutions, and I also lead the Global Women's Alliance in Manulife. Today's topic is very close to my heart. For me, by accepting the fact that both women and men are equally likely to be great leaders, we are strengthening the need for inclusive, fair work practices and structures across the board. And this should be provided to everyone, regardless of their gender, the opportunity to grow and to lead. Outside work, I enjoy traveling. I love collecting Starbucks mugs, and I'm also into photography. So I'm very happy to be part of this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Francia. Wonderful introduction. Lovely to have you here. From here, we again jump up to Airbus. Prema Suresh, welcome to the forum.
Hello to everyone. Very happy to be with you all today, and looking forward for this great exchange with all the powerful ladies out here. Myself, Prema from Airbus, been with Airbus for 10 years now. I've done various roles. In my current role, I have the inclusion and diversity and culture and change for Airbus India. In my personal space, I enjoy mentoring and coaching. I also work with the STEM groups, kids, to encourage them to take the STEM topics at their higher education or careers. Yes, very happy to be part, and thank you so much for GWFM for this invitation.
Thank you, Prema. I now call upon S. Catano. S, are you there, please?
Hello, everyone. Hi, thank you for having me here. I'm Elsa Cartano. I'm one of the directors of Workforce Management and Results CX. Been in the contact industry for about 15 years, mainly under the workforce department. And in my previous company, I spearheaded building the workforce management team, which was really exciting because it gave me the opportunity to hire diverse people and actually experience the success of bringing talented women and leaders in the organization. Would love to talk more about gender equality. For me, it's the need of the hour, and it's something that we should all learn and embrace. It's simply being fair for women and men. I mean, it doesn't mean that men and women are the same. Definitely it's not. But more of both should be given equal opportunities or chances, especially for those that have skills and who believes that they can make difference. So, I mean, it's time for us to accept it and embrace it and have that open thinking of diversity when it comes to like women can also lead and provide. So thank you.
Thank you, S. That was lovely. I now call upon Nairi Johnson. I believe Nairi can't really come on camera. So that's all right, Nairi. We're all waiting to hear you.
Hello, I can come on camera, but it's just disabled at the moment. So I'm just waiting for that to be reactivated, and then I'm happy to show my face. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Nairi Johnson, and I am the Workforce Planning Advisor for Energy Queensland in Australia. And I've worked in this role for over 7 years now. Previously, I've worked in banking and insurance and have over about 12 years experience in workforce planning and analytics. And I am very thankful that I've been invited along tonight for me here in Australia to join this Global International Women's Day event amongst professionals such as yourselves and I'm very much looking forward to learning from you and having this conversation. I'm passionate about empowering women in particular, and am involved in quite a few women's organisations and groups in my region of Australia. And I am passionate about equality for all and embracing diversity. I believe nobody should be disadvantaged because of their ability, gender, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status. Outside of work, I'm an active writer and author. I'm also a scout leader, and I manage and own a small business in my hometown of Rockhampton. So thank you again for having me, and I look forward to hearing from you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Tina Vinod, let's hear from you, please. Hi.
Hi, Devjani. I just joined, so I'm not sure what the question was.
The question is simple. Can we know about you, please, in about a minute and a half?
Okay, I'm Tina Vinod, and I head diversity, equity, and inclusion for ThoughtWorks India and for ThoughtWorks globally. I've been with the organization for about 20 plus years and have a total years of experience of about 22. I've spent the last 8 to 9 years working intensively in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And my primary areas of focus are gender equity, LGBTQ plus in tech. I also am extremely passionate about disability inclusion, mental health and well-being, and the impact of culture on an organization's inclusion strategy.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. Welcome aboard. Lovely to see you, Nairi. Finally, we have you on camera. So now I call upon Aarti Goel, please. Aarti, are you there?
Yeah. Hi, Devjani. Hi, everyone. Sorry, same like Nairi, even my video is sort of says disabled from the host. So I'll try and join on video as soon as it permits me. Hi, everyone. Glad to be part of this forum. This is my first experience in a roundtable. Have attended as a listener, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm part of Source, part of WFM team, and I drive operational analytics, support business to optimize their workforce, deploy right people to the right job, I would say. Overall 18 years of experience. I've worked with organizations like IBM, Capgemini, Cognizant. And yes, I'm here with First Source. Great to be part of this forum. Looking forward to it. And how I relate to the topic, I think majority of the women discontinue their professional journey during the middle phase of their career when they are at a probably team lead or a manager level, mainly because of family reasons, right? So though in corporates, we are putting a lot of efforts, I think there's more of social responsibility also, right? How do we enable them to continue? How we can provide support so that they continue, probably take a break, and then how they can continue. So I personally try and make sure that where possible, we provide support to such women who are keen to continue.
Thank you, Aarti. That's really nice work. So hi, Amrita.
Hi.
Let's hear it from you.
Hi, Devjani. First of all, thanks for inviting as a part of the panelist with such great women leaders. It's definitely very encouraging to see everyone on the frame. I think I can now say with pride that we are progressing. We have gone through a great journey, loads of learning, loads of hard work. For a lot of people who have done it before, but I think we are setting the right example. So especially coming from a lot of people in this forum who have a seat right now as board of directors and advisors, I think this is the journey that we are all very proud of. But to introduce myself, I've been a journey of HR for almost close to 17 years now, have played a lot of hats, especially in talent acquisition team. And that is where, we start talking about diversity, the first trend towards or having a talent inside the company. So again, there has always been hardships or hurdles and challenges, but I think we have all learned on the go. For me, diversity is very close to my heart, as is for everybody in this forum. I think we would be the reason how the world is going to see especially all the genders with respect to work and the respect that they deserve at the workplace. So I'm so glad that I was able to be a part of this journey. Today, I'm wearing the hat of head HR for Avatar. Avatar is again a startup in its own space in AI and AR, augmented reality and virtual reality. So the journey has been really, how do we make sure that even though the revenues and the other numbers are definitely the top of the agenda on the board, we are also pushing some of diversity, and inclusion, priorities on the company as well. So it's a game changer for all of us. So I'm really glad that I'm going to learn as well from the, panelists here. Thank you.
Thank you, Amrita. Lovely perspective indeed. And I think I'll be right if I say last but not the least, Kankana Barua, can we hear from you?
So while I firstly thank you, and I was looking forward to this opportunity to be present throughout, but then, sometimes family comes first and I had to come for this vacation. So just briefly about me, I'm Konkana Barua. I'm basically a person from Northeast, and but I've been in Bangalore for a long time. By profession, or I would say by start of my career, I've been a company secretary and a law graduate, and then I kind of shifted gears and went into HR and IR for the last 20 years. So yes, this concept of diversity inclusion always close to any one of us, and I always make myself available for anything which could even remotely or with the least can help or do something the corporate world or to the workplace, or pursue a passion which they so desire to be a part of. I'm not too sure if I will be able to go through the whole conversation and hear from each one of you all, but all the lovely ladies and Partho, Shiva, thank you for having me here, and I look forward to hear as much as from each one of you. And thank you, Devyani.
Thank you, Kankana. And I would say that with the introductions now out of the way, we will dive straight into the matter of the the crux of the matter, which is gender equality, parity, inequality, agnostic. We describe these this particular paradigm in multiple different ways, and that's what has been happening over the last 10 years. We've moved gear, and we've moved from the second gear to the fourth gear now, with women such as, look at this cohort. I mean, this is as good as you can get. And having such wonderful people with the kind of eclectic thinking that you, I'm sure, bring to the table, I'm sure the audience is going to have a lot of takeaways from the likes of us. So without much ado, I'd like to, start off with possibly a question directed at Neeti. Neeti, good to go first?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, great. So, gender agnostic or gender equality? What works better? I mean, what do you think is the need of the hour?
Yeah, look, I did look up this question, and I was, can I just give you a little bit response, which is going to not address your question directly. I think that we're putting a lot of emphasis on the words here. Gender agnostic, we need equality, equity, and many more. If you really look at what is the problem statement that we're trying to solve, at the root of the issue lies in the fact that while as a human population, we are fairly equal. Look at our consumers and customers, we are fairly equal. But in terms of, I think, as we talk about women in leadership, that equality starts to dwindle. So I don't know whether agnostic is the right word or equality is the right word, but in a sense, I do think that we need to start addressing this in a systematic, structured, organized way, so that if we really know that gaps emerge at a certain point, then how we address it. So my ask would be that we keep gender as a lens, but not put too many labels on it to start addressing what is the agnostic, equity, equality, and how do we balance it all. Something that is simple, something that will resonate with everybody and masses, and we are able to then take it to, I think, the line manager level, as well as from a society perspective. If you look at, is this message landing in people's homes? Are teachers and like students and parents, are they understanding what we're trying to address? So really speaking, if we were growing like, I don't know, plants, and all grew half and half, while we are growing as a human population half and half, something goes amiss at a certain point. So how do we actually get to a point that naturally it's going to start to grow into 50-50? And that's where I think the equality is the word I will use, or the balance is what I'm going to talk about. So roundabout answer there, Johnny, but hopefully you're getting the sense of what I'm trying to, I think, address here.
Well, actually, I'm going to say that I'm in a happy space, Neeti, because one of the reasons why this question was formed in the first place was I wanted to use it as a provocation. Because today, when you actually look at any of these movements, forget about just gender, you look at the pink movement, you look at feminism, you look at any of those which are typically characterized with the women movements, you know, with the women basically in the center, we've got jargons and jargons around. Every 2 years, we land up with another new one, which becomes the fad of the time. But does the essence change? Is it a progressive movement where we would have achieved something and then only we're moving to the next level? Or is it just a question of playing around with jargons? So, you know, beautifully you've brought the problem right at the center stage with the first answer itself. And thank you so much for that. So no roundabout, you're there on the hot seat. So thank you, Neeti. Nairi, as a takeaway from what Neeti just shared with us about, you know, the gender problem needs to be addressed far more systematically, maybe through a process orientation, getting the right things to fit into place, and then creating a movement slow and steady, which percolates right down to the bottom. What would be your perspective on this?
So this is a very prominent topic in Australia at the moment as well, gender equality and how women are treated in the workplace in particular. And it's critical that we do focus on, you know, making sure that we are embracing equality and definitely embracing diversity. We've just had Harmony Week here as well in Australia, which is embracing the cultural diversity of our country, which has been fantastic to participate in through community groups and through workplaces as well. But it is important that we have more women who are ready and willing and able to step up and use their voice, show their leadership, and then turn around and help other women come along the journey at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. So it's a prominent issue in Australia. And obviously, there's a lot of movement happening around it.
It's got a lot of media attention.
Oh, fantastic.
At the moment, there is a lot of media attention with our federal government.
And just because you mentioned it, this media attention that you so speak about, is it actually adding to the momentum of the movement, or does it sometimes play a spoiled sport?
It's definitely adding to the momentum, and it's having a positive impact. It's not allowing issues to be swept under the carpet. It's also allowing other issues such as domestic and family violence to be brought to the front of people's minds, so that our federal and our state governments can do more to support the women in particular. I do recognise men as well can be victims of these moments, but it is adding to the movement. There was the Australian of the Year in 2021 actually was a victim of sexual assault, and she's raised a lot of media attention, I guess, on the problem that still exists and still is quite prominent. And in some of our very senior corporate organisations, as well as in our own parliament. And it was very brave of her to do what she did. And that actually gave permission for a lot more women to come forward and speak about what their experiences were, so that they could stop having them swept under the carpet and stop having to keep quiet. I was participating in a conversation just the other week about the fact that women who are subjected to workplace sexual harassment in particular don't come forward because they are worried about risking their career or jeopardising their position. So they're subjected to not a nice environment. Definitely not all businesses, obviously, but they can be subjected to not a nice environment and then have to suffer in silence. Whereas what's happening at the moment is that's not being tolerated. People are being given permission to speak up, to come forward, to share their stories, and so that other women also realise that they're not alone and there is help out there. And if we can continue this momentum, then change will happen. And it makes a lot of voices, many hands make light work. So if we're all coming at this and we're all being vocal and we're all speaking up, then they're going to have to listen. I think you're on mute at the moment. I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah, so I just, thank you. I just felt that, you brought something very, very important out into the spotlight, the kind of positive role that media can play, in taking this kind of movements forward, because I don't think in every geography across the world, you see that kind of positive and collaborative approach taking place in such kind of movements. So thank you. Radhika, I'm going to come back to you on, we're talking about gender equality, and we are also talking about a sustainable business model. Okay, a lot of curated surveys, including the recent Gartner survey, talks about the fact that it's a proven point that when women leadership takes stock and when there is a good amount of healthy women leadership in an organization, the bottom line starts getting positively affected. Despite knowing that, and despite this very, very important and critical factor coming to the forefront, we still don't want to push the limits. We still want to hold on, and the numbers are not really progressing the way they should. What's your take on this? Where are we stuck?
That's absolutely right, Zabjani. And it's sad that there are many studies and researchers over there, and yet we still feel that, okay, while it's improving, while the numbers are going upwards, it's not there as yet. And in fact, there was one survey I was reading that if women have to get equal pay, it'll probably start in 2235, in the year 2235. It'll take that long for everybody to naturally pay women and men the same. So it's the kind of mindset, and my take on that is just one. It is all about acceptance. It's all about opening your mind and letting people understand that diversity, inclusion, and whatever, the words that the terminology used these days in terms of, like you said earlier, agnostic or equality, all of that, it's probably more of a mindset issue and less of acceptance. And we start drawing biases and judgments that, okay, women cannot necessarily do these kinds of jobs or those kinds of roles, which for all most women leaders are HR directors and not necessarily finance or technology directors or heads of function in technology. And the question was that if technology is going to serve the entire humanity, then why not have equal or same number of, both sides present their decisions versus just only one side taking decisions for everybody else? And it was a very fair question. And the amount of survey that's gone in was really interesting. In fact, the other day, I'm quoting a personal experience. The other day, I was having a chat with my husband, just very generally. He's a captain on a ship. And he was reading about an article where there is only one single lady captain in the shipping industry from India, only one. Ironically, her name is Radhika Menon.
And she's the only Indian lady being a captain in a male-dominated world, and shipping is the crew is all about men. So for her to actually reach the stage of being a captain of the ship, which is the highest you can go, and then command everything else and be ultimately responsible, is considered and regarded as a huge success. But the numbers, there's only one. And where the question I was talking to my husband was, and he was telling me, I don't know why there is so much hype about it and there is so much appreciation, while the guy also has struggled the same way in the same number of years and same studies, and he's also done the same thing. But there's no appreciation there. There's one lady who comes up and there's so much appreciation. And all I thought was like, oh my God, what a bias or an unbiased, it's ironical, where one is questioning the appreciation given to a lady who was one captain, and there are 50,000 other captains in the male side, and there is nothing of that side. So it's just the mindset, it's just acceptance, and it's just being open to that idea that it's all right. I mean, there is really nothing wrong. And there's the fear of trial, the fear of giving an opportunity, saying, what if the lady gets married, she goes on a family leave, or she needs a time off and she may not be able to take decisions, it may become emotional stuff. The mindset is such a huge issue. So my whole perspective is about education, not from, so-called inclusion, diversity, that's great, but education to be more open, education to be more accepting and being less judgmental. That is where I think the crux is, and that's where my focus should lie. That's the point.
I think these are cardinal issues that you've just touched upon. Focus on openness, focus on the fact that you need to adapt and you need to actually accept things the way they are, and then probably just move on, creating less of hype and more of, creating the fabric of society in a seamless manner to be able to incorporate those changes. Very, very, very wonderful points made, Radhika. From Radhika, I'm going to go over to Aarti, because Radhika also touched upon a very interesting point about the social fabric, the family becoming a mainstay of where does these concepts of equality or inequality really start off. Are our families today at that level where they're able to firstly fathom what's happening around us, what the concepts are, and are they able to pull into it, or do we need much more concerted effort in that direction? Aarti, all yours.
Thank you, Devjani. So I don't know if I have the answer that whether all our families are evolving and right, if we are ready. But then, if we see from the starting level, right, we have put in a lot of efforts, and we do see a lot of women graduating from business analysts or various fields, right? Could be Navy, Army. So starting point, we are somewhere good. They join the corporates, they join various fields. But then when you get married, get into family, that's where I think major concern comes in. Do you have enough family support? Probably you will even relate it to salary, right? So if there's a choice to be made who will take care of the family, probably between a husband and a wife, probably male member is earning better, right? So you take a call that, okay, do I really need to continue? If you are traveling or resettling in any other country, then majority of the times it's a women who takes a call to quit. So I don't know if all the families are ready, but then yes, I think major counseling needs to happen at that level, where we go back and tell all the trainings, even in this forum we are discussing, right? So do we go and discuss with men that at their family, at their ecosystem, do they go back and educate that even men have to support their families, women around them, step up and take more responsibilities when it comes to family responsibilities, right? Enable women around you so that they can go back and continue their professional journeys. So I at times end up being a feminist, right? Like go back and question people that, okay, so like in COVID scenario, best example, right? So if kids are hungry, usually it's a woman who is multitasking in the kitchen and then managing calls also. Why can't men go and manage that, right? Basic things, right? But then that's where it triggers that if you have to take a call, there is a imbalance there where, usually women take a call that, okay, I'll stay at home. So do they really think that, okay, probably, I can think of better options? Can I get a helping hand? Usually it's our moms. And I personally feel, we say that behind every successful man, there is a woman. I personally feel for a woman to be successful, it takes more than a man, right? So you need a maid, probably you need a parent support. Obviously, your partner has to support you to, make sure that your uh, kids are taken care, they have enough support available when you are not around, when you are traveling. But then it's a mutual responsibility for any of male or female to grow in their professional journey. So that's my thought. Again, there's a lot of groundwork required that, while we groom women, that, okay, please continue, call for help, voice out, take support, what is available. I think mutual responsibility, even men should participate. And then that upbringing has to be like that, okay, it's not a women course, that if it's cooking, only women has to do. If it's managing kids, teaching them, it's a mutual thing. So it has to be a partnership approach to what Neeti said, right? So how do you call equality there? There is somewhere unconscious bias and stereotype that, okay, we all relate. And somewhere I think we are good in multitasking, right? So somewhere even we are well equipped with it. So it's a mutual responsibility, I think. And definitely there are efforts, society is evolving. But then, yes, I was even speaking to a NGO, they are putting efforts to educate young women. So NGOs are sponsoring these studies and they are preparing them for interviews. But the concern NGOs brought was, they'll spend a year in the job and then majority of them step back. They don't continue. So look at the efforts, you're trying to have a better, life for those guys, but then they discontinue just because I have a family to take care. Somewhere, it's a mutual responsibility, yes, and somewhere we need to work on the ground level. That's my take.
Thank you, Arti. I think fundamental point made. While you were speaking, there was a lovely comment in the chat box by Deepthi. And she spoke about the fact that just like, we have so many roles identified in society. It's like, this is the man's world. It's a man's job. Typically it's the male who should be occupying this chair. Do we have anything close to that which says with conviction, this is a woman's job? Okay, it is for the woman to step in and take it up. Deepthi, I'm going to call you only on your chosen topic. That how would you like to approach this problem? Because I'm completely in sync with you. Where do we find our space? Which is that chair which belongs to me? Where the identity is very clearly proclaimed the way it is done for the other people.
So just a bit of background first. On Women's Day, we did something called the Convention of Unconventionals. And like Radhika, you mentioned, we had gotten a squadron leader from the Indian Air Force, who was a woman. We got an ACP from the police force. We got a weightlifter who was a woman. We were desperately seeking for a male who was doing a woman's job. So the first thing I thought of was a stay-at-home dad. And there I was hitting myself for the stereotype. I said, so a stay-at-home dad is what a woman's job is, which he is doing. I was like, oh, that doesn't work, really doesn't work. So then we went back to thinking, what are the roles that are associated with women, which men are doing nowadays? And we couldn't find even a single one. We thought HR, but like, what's so women-centric about it? And that's where this whole thought came in, that what really is a woman's job that you mentioned, Debjani? And there isn't one, because everything is a woman's job too. So going back to where we started with Neeti, when we talk about gender equality, okay, what we are putting in our mind is a boundary that I want to reach where the man is. I don't want to do that. I don't want to reach where the man is. I want to go beyond maybe. But we've already set that boundary because we said, I want to be equal to that guy. I don't want to be equal. I want to create my own identity. Let the guy create his own identity. Let him choose jobs that suit him. Let me choose jobs that suit me. Whether it comes to family as well, again, it has to be agnostic, right? What Aarti brought out, that during the pandemic, it was always the woman's job to go and make a snack for the child. But didn't we only spoil the man with all these social media posts saying, oh, my darling husband has cooked today? Oh, yeah. I mean, nobody is writing posts about, oh, my darling wife is cooking today, because that's just taken for granted. So somewhere we ourselves are creating this fear that this is not my job, that is not his job. Let's forget about it. It is everybody's job, and let's move to meritocracy. Anybody who's good at it just goes ahead and takes it and does it to its best ability and to what is required from that job. So yeah, gender agnostic is what I would like to move towards, and say that there is no job which is gender specific at all.
She's realized. Editha, so we've had a lot of discussion already around the terminology, the semantics that are getting used in this whole movement, role of media. Is it a space where two set of people need to cohabit and create that momentum together? Or is there something really an agenda that we need to push for ourselves? Let's hear your perspective on that. What insights would you bring to the table here?
I think it's really relevant that we talk about this, because I think in many ways it hampers, our growth in many organizations, even many economies, right? So it's I think something that we really need to push for. And I just really want to echo what my colleagues have said, that it starts from the family, right? Even in our own families. In mine, for instance, my daughter sometimes would ask me, "Mommy, can I play with the can I play with a truck, or should boys only be playing with trucks?" And I tell her, everyone can do it. It doesn't have to be a boy or a girl. So I think that's really where it starts, and I think it really starts in the family, in that that kind of culture. How we bring up our kids is really necessary in pushing for, I don't even know what the right word is anymore, right? Push, whether it's equality, whether it's being agnostic. And I do agree, it's not even being wanting to be equal with men, or it's not about that, but it's really having your own space where you can grow and where you can maximize your potential and contribute the most according to God-given gifts and talents. So I think that's where we are, and that's what we should focus on and move towards.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think that was a reinforcement of most of the points that had already been made, but with a couple of fresh ones too. And we also got to understand that irrespective of the geographies, some of these cultural and social ambits really don't change that much. Prema, it was wonderful hearing Suraj already talk about the commitment that Airbus has to the concepts of DEI and the kind of women power and the kind of women movements and initiatives that you people have been doing for many years. And it was lovely to hear him say that when he was asked, when are you going to stop doing it? He said, never. So coming from that kind of a vote of confidence, how do you support that movement? How are you translating that language to become a part of the DNA of the organization?
Thanks, Debjani. Hearing to all of our friends, it is a very important topic for us. I feel today we are addressing at institutional or the organizational level. And it is very important because the problem exists at the socio-cultural level. So we all play a very key role in translating this in one or the other way, because today the kind of reach that we have within our organization or the ecosystem that we all come together and create, I'm sure all of us can do a good impact in terms of, we all know that it's taken ages together to reach to the equity. We are talking about the gender today, but the topic also is, much large beyond the gender aspect. We all agree to it. Coming to now the initiative part of it, what we are doing at Airbus is that we being in the engineering organization, the technology and the innovation side of it, when we reach out to the institutional level to hire, it's very challenging for us because the kind of pool that we have is very limited. And apart from it, when we look at the talent pool that exists is also very limited for us. So what we have been doing very cautiously and very deliberately is that, one, we are trying to do the STEM awareness part of it to address the root cause of it. We have partnered with the institutions to see that how we can create a pipeline there. And some of our friends were sharing that we do have a returnee program, what we call it as a fly again. So we're trying to see for those women who have taken a career break and want to return back to work, how we can support them where they have left, and how we can equip them or give them the training on job and the off job to ensure that we give them the confidence to restart and start, again, focusing on the career aspect of it. Apart from that, there are various other initiatives that we do to increase the diversity part of it. When it comes to gender aspect specific to is that we try to see how we can focus and address to the 50% of the screening and also address on the unconscious biasness part of it. This is something that, I feel we do not want to, accept it, openly, but there exists, be it conscious or the unconscious, it has to, with the journey reach to the consciously being the, unbiased approach that we have to take. So the lot of sensitization program that we do for the people managers and the panelists to ensure that when we are in these discussions, we do not get into the microaggressions or the stereotyping part of it. And so we all create together the, the inclusive culture that is needed.
Right. Thank you so much. That indeed gives us an insight into what you are doing at Airbus. Yasmin, my next question to you. Unconscious bias, I think we're quite familiar with the term by now, and it keeps cropping up in some form or the other, including the pink cover at the back. The point that I would like to make here is unconscious bias really so unconscious today? Or do you get a feeling? I mean, this is something that I get a feeling sometimes that, some of it is actually played out beautifully in the contours and, the corridors of the corporate, knowing very well the kind of outcome and impact it is likely to have on the larger mass. Are we taking advantage of something there?
Yeah, thanks, Devjani. And I think that's very true. Unconscious bias exists today. While I do see efforts being made by organizations to maybe deal with that, there are still situations where, like you talked about these corridor conversations where maybe someone is trying to take advantage of that, right? I think one is to acknowledge that whether it truly exists. And now that it exists, what are we doing about it? And I can share something that we do at NextGen, and we actually did something at NextGen to deal specifically with unconscious bias. We actually designed a program talking about what's a bias, first of all? Is it skin, race, color, gender? What exactly are we talking about? Women, of course, that's that was the, sorry, there's an aeroplane flying on top of my house. I don't know if you can hear that now, but these are some benefits of working from home. Okay, so yeah, so gender is one of the biggest topics, right, that we're talking about, where there's unconscious bias. So we actually created a program, a training program, where we got all our employees. We made it a mandatory training program for everyone to go through. It talked about ways of working. It was like a workshop, right? So we broke it down in teams. We talked about what's a bias and what each one felt there was, what were the myths. So we had this little placeholder which had these, I'm just sharing a small example, these balloons which talked about certain biases that people were feeling or experiencing, and how to bust those. So people actually went and just spoke and said, I'm going to take care of this. If I see something, like, be the change that you want to see. Essentially, that is what it was. So talking about this, a sensitization program for the managers and leaders, because managers are really the people who are closest to your employees. And these conversations that you talked about, Devjani, I think we have to nip it at the bud, right? So when there's a team conversation, you see managers are privy to that, or they see certain behaviors in the team, which brings out some of these unconscious bias, and how do you address that? So the approach we took was to really address unconscious bias very consciously. So how do we do that? By being more mindful, by being more watchful of the how. It's not just the what, but how is this coming across to the other person? Like Deepthi was saying, and somewhere I think Radhika was also talking about just usage of backgrounds, or stereotyping certain roles just for women. So when we're talking, like even now, are we just saying, yeah, we're looking for a CEO, right? I hope he joins soon, right? We already assume the CEO has to be a he. I think the moment we move away from a gender conversation to competence, I think that's when all these other terminologies will go, which is, equality, equity, whatever you name it, right? Subconscious bias. It will stay perhaps in some pockets, but I think it's us who mindfully need to make that change and take steps towards it. So sensitization is extremely important. We need to have open conversations about it. We hear he, she, usage of these words. In fact, what we did was we went and looked at all our policies and made it gender neutral, right? We looked at even our interviewing panel. We did, diversity and inclusion training for them, sensitization training. Essentially, it doesn't mean that you just get biased and say, oh, you know what, you're a woman, you're on break, so let me just hire you. Hire for competence, and like even Deepthi said, I think for merit, right? It's all about that. So I think when we openly talk about this, when we have panel discussions, when we get leaders to the forefront, when people start seeing that, I think it becomes much more aware, and we become very mindful, right? It's like crossing a bridge. You're very mindful, you might just fall. Having zero tolerance, like even policies sometimes play an important role, right? So if you have certain policies where someone's, like you don't use certain words in certain conversations, or I remember there was this, R&D document which said, like the technology terminology, like a master file, right? Like we started talking about some of those things, right? So I think it becomes, there is no boundary to where you stop this, but I think if you're able to take baby steps, even these conversations, right? Like right now, what we're doing, I think it becomes much more prominent in our minds. And I think like Aarti said, even at homes, right? You have kids, you talk about, like I have a son and a daughter, but just bringing that whole fairness angle or the balance and saying anybody can do anything, it's fine, is something that we need to do. And I can give you a small little example here. Just last night we were having a global team call, and somebody said, oh, by the name you can make out what gender the person is, right? And I said, exactly, this is not the conversation we need to have, right? Because we are so already biased, saying if, it's a certain name, it's a male or a female or a certain, ethnic background. So I think when you immediately take these baby steps wherever you can in just your own network, I think you can make this big change happen, because there is no need for really large scale initiatives. I think it's just little things that matter most. I think that's where I would begin with. So thank you.
Well said, Yasmin. I think that's something which we all wake up to, that it's not the big ticket items. It's not always something which has to be a wow. It can even be small reinforcements as we go along. So it brings me, it takes me back to the days of the quality movement, when the ISO and everything else suddenly became something very big in the industry. All we had to do was just keep putting up posters at every nook and corner of the corridors. And we built that as part of our vision mission statement. And we kept putting it wherever we thought the eyes could locate it. So, and sooner or later, people did become aware of something called quality. Of course, it took a lot more, I mean, in terms of systematization and all that. But, and this is going to be my next question related to this, to Anis, which is, when you want to bring about these kind of changes, whether through reinforcements or any other kind of systemic procedures, how do you think communication, messaging, changing the language of the environment, what do you think the kind of role that some of these factors play? Because I have personally been part of different setups where I've seen the kind of contradictory impact that, not having enough of it or having too much of it can actually can create a toll in the environment. Your views, please.
Thank you, Devjani, for that question. Before I jump into explaining the whole aspect of communication and how we need to work on it while we are trying to bring about the systemic changes, I'd like to connect it back to what Yasmin was talking about. So when we had the whole social unrest about Black Lives Matter, we also at SAP worked on an inclusive language project. And it was a little bit surprising for us to say that, okay, we are a global company, but how do we from different parts of the world really contribute to it? And one of my good friend and millennial, my co-author, in fact, he said, I remember the story from my grandfather who worked with the British. And he told me that during the British times, the way we were being colonized, our own tribal leaders who were like the little kings in their own little tribes were asked to call the East India manager as Gore Sahib, the white master. And immediately it sound a master and slave kind of a difference that we are bringing. And even not being really in the heart of the Black Lives Movement matter, we realize how these small languages and small terms that we use can actually bring in differentiation and how it can impact somebody personally. So it is not just enough that we are able to communicate, we put posters, we write regular emails, but it is also equally important on how we show up. What the CEO and what the leader says and what she does needs to be aligned. So when we think about how we can kind of look at biases that creep into the system, because at the end of the day, if the system is going to encourage a certain behavior, then we cannot, it would be impossible to go and fight a battle with every individual in the company or in the society. What we might want to do is create those nudges. One example that SAP does when we talk about bias that can creep into hiring is to really remove some of the obvious things. Like, for example, what Yasmin said, remove the name, remove the gender, remove the name of the college you're coming from, because that could cause bias. Remove the location that you're from, because all of these really doesn't add value in terms of the skill and talent you're bringing to the table, right? So when we create a system where there is a hiring process which is to that extent blind, in fact, in our offices in Italy, we in fact had blind interviewing, where the interviewer and the interviewee had to do a whole conversation sitting in a completely dark room. While it was uncomfortable and difficult in the beginning, it actually opened up people to speak more comfortably saying that, oh, I don't have to worry what the interviewer is looking at me for, and so on. So there are ways in which every process that we do, whether it is at hiring, whether it is at nudges in terms of your development, where how you're looking at your promotion and progression list, how are you looking when you're having those performance management discussions. Very, very obvious one which comes up is that you're telling your top performer who's a male that he is a rock star and he has very high potential. And you're telling and if you're going to write a qualitative remark about your top performing female, that she's a go-to person, warm and friendly, guess who's going to get the next promotion, right? So how can we remove these biased words? And this goes even in your job analyzers, right? While you're putting across your job descriptions, don't just look at, is this attractive for only one group of people, but can it be attractive for all groups of people? So these are some of the ways that we can go beyond this whole conversation on why do we not have enough women in the workplace or women in leadership. It is because we are not casting our net wide enough to get the true talent that is available. So when you attract the women into the company, what you're also doing is you're also attracting a lot of other diverse talent from an alternate talent pool. So having that mindset that it is not for charity, it is not for doing someone a favor, but really looking for the most talented person that is available to come and join you, be with you, grow with you is becomes so much more important. So when we think about changing these behaviors which are based on bias, it is not just enough having the tick box of saying that, okay, I will improve my diversity and everything will work out, but to really sustain that inclusion all throughout your employee journey and beyond. And this, I would think about it from, a CSR perspective, to in terms of what we're doing for our families and in the social justice system.
Wonderful. I mean, I can only say that, Anis, it sounded like a masterclass. Thank you. Beautiful tips. No, seriously, beautiful tips about how you can remain grounded, you can remain simple, not sort of try and achieve for the stars and yet get it right. I think a little bit of a prudence and some amount of cognitive rational thinking put together with some common sense behaviors is what really is required to get the ship on the road. Cartano, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, sorry, it's been quite a wait, and I'm sure that's for many of you who are as large a panel as this. I would like to understand from you in your part of the world, okay, where you work and you've had such an extensive sort of experience in these areas. What have been the 2-3 major paradigms that you've been having to juggle with, or which have posed challenges over the last decade?
Well, I think one major challenge is that it'll talk about, again, it's still about gender inequality, to be honest. I mean, I am very happy that my current company, there's gender equality, it's being practiced, but for some, especially here in the Philippines, it's still not. I'll be honest, like I have a neighbor wherein he lost his job because of the pandemic and he can no longer support the education of one of his kids. His daughter was an A student, his son was an average one, but then he asked his daughter to stop studying despite being a dean's lister. So there's this bias already that's happening, and I'm pretty sure that it happens to a lot of families too in the other country. And being deprived from education at a young age because you're a woman, and that simple action already limits you to the opportunities that you can have in the long run. So in my experience, that happens quite frequently here, and unfortunately, it's really hard to control it because we should start it at home or at school and educate the equal opportunities that it should be given to everyone, whether it's education or work. And eventually it'll spread, it'll become a pattern, and it'll become a part of the culture. In the company, it's oftentimes, women in a position is not accepted, and they're having problems with accepting the reality that women are great leaders too because they lead in a more democratic way. So leading in a more democratic way, it increases the communication, but then some people would say that, women are so emotional, right? We just have to really take control of it and show that when there's a woman in a leadership, they help people at all levels to communicate, which empowers them to recognize important issues and find common grounds for actions, build a sense of identity and participation in order to implement these decisions that we're all talking about.
Thank you. So it's obvious, east to west, wherever we go, concerns remain the same. And I think all of the surveys, the research that is happening around the world, both on gender diversity, even in terms of equity pay, the kind of numbers that we get to see, they're not radically different. It could be, by point something, or maybe just a 0.1 here and a 0.2 there. But typically we see the same syndrome happening all across. Tina, I'm coming to you now, and like to hear your, your insights into. We already had an unequal world, right? We've had an unequal world for quite some time. How has the pandemic and this recent turbulence that struck us, completely unawares, and of the scale that it came by, how has that disturbed the so-called equilibrium, whatever we had earlier, the kind of inequality we had, or has it worsened? Has it taken a turn for another dimension? What are we looking at the women's situation post this kind of, epidemic, this COVID-19?
Thanks, Debjani, and lovely points made today. Like everything else, right? Huge situations or world situations that impact, humanity. I think the underrepresented groups are the ones that get impacted the most, and especially those that are in the context of the workplace. So the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report of 2021 announced that it would take 135 years to achieve gender parity. Now, the 2020 report said it would be 99 point some months. So it shifted by almost a generation in 2022 report post-pandemic. So the gap has only increased, and it's going to be difficult. I think it's also important to look at workplace. It's important to look at women in the workforce, not just in the context of our corporate worlds, but in the context of everywhere, right? And then what can organizations do to bridge that gap? Specifically in the corporate sector, we see a lot of initiatives. For example, in ThoughtWorks, we focus a lot and are very unapologetic about our focus around women in technology, because we do know they're underrepresented. And we do know that, there are microaggressions, micro inequities, and bias that exists in the technology world even today. So this is an area that we continue to work on. We have a lot of leveling the playing field initiatives, and I hear what my co-panelists have to say about, it's a level playing field, it's meritocracy. But I think all of us don't start at the same place, and we also need to keep intersectional feminism in mind. And so it is very, very critical then to see what can we do. And if the world was an equal place, we'd see more women in the workplace, and specifically talking about gender here. We'd see more LGBTQ plus people in the workplace, and we would see more representation in leadership. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And so, and we do see that even today in our progressive workplaces. And so there is a lot of effort, and there's a lot of historical inequities that would take time to fix. And we spoke about a lot of things, right? Like unconscious bias, leadership development programs, We talk about, pay parity. We talk about, specific internship and initiatives and programs that we can do to level the playing field. But I think most important than all is to look at the larger ecosystem and the systemic biases that exist and how it impacts different classes and groups. And in the context of the workplace, I think there is so much that organizations can do as part of their DEI focus, but also beyond that when they look at CSR or when they look at social impact. In fact, mapping some of your CSR goals or your, social impact goals to the SDGs will really help. There's a lot of direction that comes from UN. WEP, right? And so I think it's very, very critical that organizations look at the larger impact that they can do beyond just looking inwards and leveling the playing field.
Thank you, Tina. I think that's that's as refreshing a point as it can be, though it's not that we weren't aware of it, but I think you made it that much more clearer that we don't really all start at the same time and at the same place. And if that remains the cardinal truth, then obviously keeping up with each other or trying to get the better of the systems together in the same manner in itself becomes a utopia. Only thing that possibly one can hope for is in the journey, if there are ways by which we can create systems where the inequalities keep getting diffused or diminished little by little, so that the gaps can come closer, and one day we'll hope for the gaps to diminish. However, the reports such as what we said, that just to get equity it'll take us 2035, that's the year that is being proclaimed, is very, very disheartening. Sometimes you're just listening to this in a 2-hour webinar of this kind repeatedly by each one of us in itself becomes a matter where you start feeling distraught. Neeti, I'm going to come back to you on something which has been bothering me for a little while. In all our talks, in all the talks that we have about gender, tell me if I'm wrong. I would love to be corrected. But even when each one of us, talk about it in a very, very, let's say, level playing field kinds, or in a way where we would like to give everybody their right space, does it not happen? I don't know if it's happened with you, but I hear it in many of the echoes of what my colleagues have just shared, that we, unconsciously, that bias emanates even from us, whereby we start, creating that paradigm of us versus them. And sometimes I just wonder who the them is. Is it the man on the other side? Or is it society? Is it legislature? Is it the government which is not supporting us? Where do we want to make a real difference? And where do you think we can come together and create that momentum for a different tomorrow?
Oh, thank you for the question. In fact, when Aarti was speaking earlier, I was trying to just comment that I hear her and I hear her points, because even the simple things, right? Like where you are somehow expected to. So for me, I think I constantly have been talking about, we are within the workplaces, in the modern workplace, there is a lot of, I think, awareness about this topic. And then we talk about, hey, line managers need to be trained. Hey, everybody needs to have an inclusive language. We have to have programs. I still think, do we actually start to address it at the level of education? We are teaching kids how to do your algebra in a certain grade. We're teaching them, where are the life skills? How do you live life? Where is that? And a simple example of, we constantly talk about where are our next generation children picking up their clues of what to do or what not to do. They observe their parents, right? They observe their family. Is this role modeling of equal responsibility? Who's making the dinner should not be a question about, oh, once in a month somebody is making a dinner. This is like, it's a shared thing. Or who's doing the school run should be automatically a thing that's a divider. And if the kids have seen this, right, financial discussion, you doing some major investment, who has the voice on it? Who can say yes and who can say no to it? If you see this, if this is in the entire, I think your kid is watching this, like there are two partners here, not like man and women, and one is just constantly imposing this has to happen, or one is cooking while working, etc. So I really feel this is the place where it's not getting addressed equally. It may be in some families, it may be happening in certain parts of society, but is it happening at an education level? We then suddenly keep growing into the system where we are growing to find a good job, right? We are getting our education for the purpose of getting into good organizations. And then the organizations are responsible for setting everything right. What happened to the first 18 years of your conditioning? That's really not there. So for me, I think if there is one change, and I'm constantly thinking, right, maybe at that point or when you work for 25 years, you think of what else you want to do. I'm really thinking if I have a chance, I want to generally start something really at the stage of like maybe 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds and that education level. This is where it becomes like a norm at your education, where it becomes visible that this exists and this needs sorting. This is your challenge. So that like 10 years from now or 20 years from now, this discussion doesn't happen. We shouldn't actually have this panel anymore.
Lovely. And as they say, you know, one point leads to the other so that you can come full circle. We are where I think there is a fundamental change required, and that is our education system. You know, as they say, everything starts, I think the first school you go to is your home, and your mother remains the first teacher, the tutor that you start your life with. But having said that, the moment you step your foot out and you're in a more structured environment, and you spend the rest of your 18 years, as you rightly said, Neeti, in a very, very structured environment with multiple sources giving you different pictures of what values are, what discipline is, what is education all about. I think some of these fundamental attributes, you know, get left out. And despite the fact that there have been enough people questioning and enough people, including a good, robust academia industry cooperative, leading the way in saying the time is here for change. We need to sort of relook at what we are learning and what we are teaching within the four walls. The movement really hasn't happened that far. And that's a pity. That's really a pity, because that's where the dissonance sets in. Because as you said, the moment we finish off with the libraries and move into the corporate corridors, it's a very different world for us again. Okay, the whole value system changes. And that's the reason why today we find with the Gen X and every other gen that we talk about, the dropouts or the frustrations or the disconnects that they go through in life are so much more pronounced than probably a lot of us who had a little more gradual and much more grounded kind of an upbringing. Neeti, lovely point. Thank you for that. And I'm going to ask Deepthi to take it from there to tell us that what kind of a role does the corporate need to really play in order to push or maybe break a few roads inside the academic curriculum and shake it up a bit there, so that we are able to, you know, get some of these major issues institutionalized within the curriculum. Do you think there is a need for it in the first place?
Oh, definitely. I think even now, a number of, for example, let me put it down right at the play school level. There was a discussion in one of the forums with mothers, where a male child was asked to have a haircut. And it was as simple as that. He had lovely curly hair, longish hair. And they said, no, a boy is supposed to have a haircut. Now that's where we start our, our biases. And that's where, if he wants to have long hair, if he has a problem getting his hair cut, let him be. That's what he wants to be. That's what he likes. So from a school perspective, that's where we start our biases. That's where we talk about examples where men and women are so different, and And when women are doing something great, it's like, if they're stepping out, it's absolutely fantastic and something out of the ordinary. We have to normalize going out. We have to normalize stepping out and working. It's still a problem in a lot of places where a woman working is an issue, or a mother working, or right after the 6 months of maternity leave, when mother goes out, it's a big deal. Who's going to look after the child? Who's going to look after all of that? Aarti had spoken about that. It is not a normal thing. We have to start to normalize it, and that's how we need to change the way we talk. The he's and the she's in the regular conversation has to change. So that's as far as the education part goes. Even in our organization, of course, we talk a lot about leadership being strong in terms of women, all right? So the gender ratio being great at the leadership level. I'm very proud to say that in our organization, we have a 50-50 gender ratio at the leadership level. But as you go down, where the broader level is, the executive, the senior executive, are we hiring or making a conscious effort to hire right there? If my AVP levels, I don't have so many women over there, then how am I expecting a gender ratio to be balanced at a VP level? That's obviously not possible, because you haven't created the right right platform for them to move up. So and this has been my constant push to the organization, because we've suddenly globally taken a target of, let's say, we want 50% women at leadership roles. Like, great, it's great, but then are we doing the right things from bottom up? I don't think a top-down approach in this place is going to work, because the place where we lose women and the ratio goes totally awry is at your manager, senior manager level, because that's when people are building their families. So I think that language has to change. The opposite, and I do want to bring this up, is that the opposite is also true. The moment we start to treat women with kid's glove, we start to talk about some kind of reverse bias. I wouldn't say I have done this myself as a manager. We had a bunch of women in my team, and there were always somebody with a newborn baby, somebody with a sick mother-in-law. So they always got shifts which were day shifts. And there was this single girl who perpetually got night shifts. And finally, after 2 quarters of night shifts, she came back and said, "You think I don't have a life? Just because I don't have a husband, I don't have a mother-in-law, I don't have a child, I may just want to sit back, have a drink, and watch TV. What is wrong with that? Why will I not get that space?" And I think I caught myself actually having a bias against people who were single, that inko to koi bhi shift chalta hai, anytime they can come to work, right? And that was a woman with another woman. And it was eye-opening for us. So we have to look at every level, not just leadership level. I know women leaders can do great things, but let's go down to the grassroots and look at those as well.
And the question of grassroots is what I'd like to pose to Aarti. Aarti, grassroots changes are always most difficult to implement, primarily because the way we define grassroots has a combination of both the urban and the rural milieu built into it. And no single formula works there, which is as pronounced and as easy to see in every system that we apply in our country, and I'm sure across the globe too. So when you talk of a concerted effort, or when you talk of a holistic approach towards grassroots development, which ultimately will spell success for this entire conundrum of moving from the education to the corporate to finally creating a balanced life, how do you see us moving in that direction? Are we already ready for it, or do we need to acquire a certain amount of knowledge, more towards public, public domain or prescriptive public policies? Where do you want us to go from there?
I think efforts are already there, as I mentioned, right? Top. So you do have candidates available, right? Doing the right mix of hiring. So to, everybody's point here, if I'm already hiring a mix of 50-50, that's where equality already started. I have created a forum of equal opportunities. And from there, I think it's more about skill level evaluation rather than being biased that whom I want to promote, right? So if you do the right hiring right at the grassroots level, give equal opportunities because you're then giving a equal forum for them to grow. Same training or same platform for everybody to compete, and then from there it's more about giving space to the skill rather than being a bias, gender bias, or picking people basis your choice. So I think starting right from the scratch and rather than making it a 70-30 or a 60-40, that minimum have 30% women hiring, I think 50-50 would be a good number to start right from the grassroots level. That's my take. And I think our policies are not biased. Policies don't define that you have to go. Policies say probably that have minimum of 30%, but then if we start with 50-50, I think that's a good mix to start with.
Thank you, Aarti. Prema, for organizations who have yet to start work in a very, very concerted and focused manner on an agenda for DEI, for instance, but they have the right intent and they really want to get onto it. How do you expect, and what do you think that particular team needs to do? What are those ground rules which they should put in place to be able to do justice to that kind of a charter?
Okay, thanks, Debjani. For the organization who are starting, I feel what is important is that when they attract talents or in the hiring stage itself, the right selection process and creating those expectations as organization culture, what is expected is very important. And it is very important that when we talk about culture, the value system that the organization expects, because here when we talk about culture, it is more to do with the mindset as well. So this has to be assimilation of just not the top or only the bottom. It has to be an assimilation of both the bottom and the top approach. So it is very important that the expectations at a leadership level, across the level in the organization, it is very clearly laid down and made it mandate that the set of value system, the acceptance level is there. When we talk about the unconscious bias across in any processes, I feel it exists. So what is much needed is the acceptance of it. If exists, how do you accept it and move on to correct and take the right measures is very important. So setting that culture is very important. Like Peter said, strategy eats, the culture eats strategy at breakfast. So this is about it. So the strategy here is, though you're focusing on the outcome of the business, what is that we have to achieve, but equally important that the culture of the organization and what takes in to build that a family kind of an atmosphere where you achieve for the organization at the same time what you give back to the society is something that you need to integrate it very seamlessly across in every processes and every practice of the organization. And that cannot be done in one way, because you cannot say that I do it in one of the processes or in one stage of the organization but left across. So stitching together across is equally very important. Yeah, and I feel here the culture of the organization plays a key role.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, because I think without the culture becoming the underpinning of exactly what we need to do, it just remains basically a structure at the surface, and not much really gets implemented in the way it should be. And that brings me to the next question, and I'll go to Tina for this. So Tina, I'm back with you. Culture or what we say, the DNA of an organization. They don't change overnight. And also getting a homogeneous culture itself is one hell of a task, as they say, because it's like a melting pot, and you've got people drawn from different organizations, different cultures, different value systems coming in, and joining you. And it's one hell of a task, even getting that whole group think alike, move together, focus on similar objectives, and getting that momentum around it. It takes many years for organizations to mature into that. In all that struggle, throw in the gender equation, throw in the gender issue, and throw in the most cardinal issue about creating a safe place for women to work. Where do you think we are today in terms of actually having in place a very safe arena where anybody can walk in? And I'm specifically saying anybody, which is inclusive of the women, of course. Anybody can walk in and feel comfortable about being part of the culture. Where in our kind of subconscious, where do you think we are today?
I think it depends on, of course, your personal journey and lived experiences, because a lot of our insecurities, a lot of how we feel personally about ourselves is about where we come from. And so, for example, if I'm a woman of color, or if I come from a non-English speaking background, the comfort level I have walking into a corporate multinational organization would be very different from someone who comes with a convent-educated English background.
The right background, as they say.
It's education, right? You walk into a room, a room of leaders from IIT and IIM, and then you don't really have that background, but you're still a leader in the organization. How do you feel? There is also the point around gender, right? And that is a reality. When you have low representation, it is important to see more like you. When you do not see more like you, then you're a minority within that group. And there will be insecurity. And so it's important to look at privilege, to look at how you can level the playing field, to look at what type of an organizational culture that you have. What are you saying about your organization? How do you onboard new employees into your organization? What is your employer brand saying? What are your leaders saying within the organization? How do you build awareness? How do you build connect? What type of affinity groups and employee resource groups do you have? Is diversity, equity, and inclusion sponsored by the leadership and the key stakeholders within the organization? What is the voice of a grad when it comes to the voice of a senior most person in the organization? What are we doing when women come back from the workplace, from a break, especially when they come back from a maternity break or a parental leave break? Do we think twice about giving them their grade change then, or are we giving them the grade change even before they go on the maternity break? So these are the small things and the big things when it comes to culture. And it is a very systemic change that needs to happen within the organization and in this ecosystem at large. And it does not happen overnight, right? It depends on who is your founding members of your organization. And I think in ThoughtWorks, we've had the privilege, of having a founder. We're a public company now, but it was founded by Neville Roy Singham, ThoughtWorks, and he came with a very tenet that organizations are places and ecosystems that need to be equitable. That is where he started, and every foundation of the organizational culture started with that. So at the very fundamental level, our values, our culture, our business, our community think about equity and inclusion. That said, right, this is not a leadership, this is not functional leaders, this is not a DEI HR responsibility. It needs to trickle down to collective ownership of everyone in the organization. And how do you make that happen? You make that happen by creating a safe space, by the right policies, by hiring diverse talent, by looking at the right policies, by looking at the right programs, by looking at proper advancement and growth. and most importantly, creating a culture of inclusion. And this needs to be the collective ownership of everyone in the organization.
True that. Thank you so much. Um, I just wanted your perspective on something which is not, I don't know whether to say it is a gender issue, or is it something to do with the same gender? I mean, would we want to qualify it as a gender issue? I'm not sure, but I'm posing the question nevertheless to you, because I want this topic to be sort of, sliced and diced in every possible manner, as they say. You hear of the women fraternity, you hear of the woman cohort, okay, creating centers of excellence, supporting each other, making sure that you're there at the right time, help other like-minded women, do what they need to do. And in between all this, there are still those low-sounding echoes about women being the nemesis for many other women in the corporate. There is a saying that beware of the female boss. Sometimes she actually stabs you much harder than probably what a male can ever do to you. Now, how much of truth is there in it? And does it have any bearing on any gender issue? I mean, of course, the two belong to the same gender, but should we look at it as a gender problem? Number one, does it exist? And if it does, to what extent?
Yeah, Debjani, thank you for that question. It kind of, in my mind, that is a conversation much beyond the gender aspect. In fact, it kind of relates back to what Tina shared with regards to psychological safety. As a leader, one of the best ways for us to kind of create that psychological safe space is to take the courage to be ourselves vulnerable. Why do I say this? Because if we all are having leaders who are sitting as, very mighty, very courageous, very unreachable, it becomes very difficult for the people in your teams, among your colleagues and your team members to be showing up as less than anything better, right? So it's important for leaders to have that open-mindedness that as human beings, we are all vulnerable. And to the point that you said with regard to our beware of the women bosses, sometimes women, because of all the struggles that we go through and reach a certain position of authority or power or title, we feel that we went through so much, so everybody else should. And this is not so much of a women issue or a gender issue, but more of the generational gap that exists. When I talk to people from different generations and we talk about ageism at the workplace, some of the things which break communication is this. Oh, when I was your age, did you know I got half the salary and worked double the time? So those kind of things happen. So when we talk about psychologically safe spaces, it is about creating those systems and creating those processes where everybody feels safe, not just to give their best ideas, but to own up to failures, to own up to say that they are wrong and know that it is still not, a life or death situation. And as a manager, if you're able, as a leader, if you're able to give that space for your team members to say that, yes, we went wrong in this project, that doesn't make you a bad person, or that is not because of your diversity that you're a man or a woman or a young parent or whatever, but really it is because of the way we function. Here are our learnings. What can we do to take it better? We'll go. That is number one, the vulnerability of it. The second thing that I want to highlight is how the organization responds to the small mistakes that you do shows up in how the organization will respond to the big disciplinary actions. If you have a situation where there is a harassment issue with one of your senior leaders or top leaders, and you kind of let that go because of the position, then you're giving a very incorrect message to the rest of the organization that it is okay to have a behavior that can get passed over. So your policy might say zero tolerance to harassment, but your behavior shows something else. So here is the second thing that I would bring about in terms of when it comes to creating the space for psychological safety. It will include women. There will be women to women issues, but you should remember that it is much beyond.
Thank you, lovely. And that's exactly what I wanted to get a little bit of clarity on. That, this is well heard. Not only that, we hear of the honeybee syndrome. Sometimes I'm at a loss for words because of the kind of coinage of terms they bring in. Very enticing itself. So you've got the the Cinderella syndrome, and you've got the honeybee syndrome. And I'm left wondering, where do these honeybees and the Cinderellas come from? They're all from within us, within our cohort, okay? But what makes them do what they do ultimately is what the question is. But before even I move on to that, I'm going to go back to Nairi Johnson, and I'm going to ask, Nairi, that think of yourself as the CEO of your company, okay? Let's assume you've just been anointed the CEO of your company, and you want to push forth a very engaging, simple, yet easy to do DEI charter. You want to put that into action. What would be some of the key points that such a charter would address?
Firstly, I would be working with everybody in the organisation to find out what was important to them to have included, because I do believe that it is critical to work with the people on the front line of the business to find out what's important. I'm also not a big fan of quotas. I think someone mentioned that a little bit earlier as well. It should be based on skills and suitability for the role rather than whether the person ticks a certain box to achieve a role. So it's really important to capture that in a charter as well, to ensure that you're not recruiting the wrong people just to tick a box essentially, and that you are appointing the right people where they need to be placed. I think it would be a good idea to create some committees that can discuss as well what it is that needs to be included, and what you need to consider when creating a charter that everybody is happy with and able to adapt as their own. I think it's really important that when we create something as significant as this, that everybody's along for the journey and everybody takes ownership of it as well, which can aid in embedding it in the culture of the organisation. So some key elements would be, of course, giving people the power, being empowered to call out, discrimination against different cultures or backgrounds or sexuality, and making sure that there is a forum that can, where you can actually discuss concerns and address them, and make sure that that process is completely transparent, and that people are held accountable for this particular charter as well. So those would be some of the things just off the top of my head, and I guess the approaches that I would take to get it off the ground.
Thank you. Sounds lovely. Sounds like a very level-headed CEO for the next generation organization. Thank you. Editha, in your part of the world again, if you were to charter a very progressive, gender-sensitive environment in your organization. I'm not referring to only a diversity charter. I'm not talking about parity. I'm not talking about processes being completely de-aligned from identities. I'm just talking about a gender-sensitive agenda. If that was to be a highlight at the place of work, what would be some of the key 3 or 4 things you would definitely want to, institutionalize?
I think some of the key things that need to be included is ensuring that there's equal opportunity regardless of gender, and proactive, measures to ensure that that kind of um, equality is maintained. It also, we need to have policies that address, well, not really policies, but we need to make sure that we're being sensitive. We have a means for hearing out the employees, hearing out the people of what they want to say, or if they have thoughts, if they have opinions, if they have contributions.
Panelists also.
There are certain
Some of them fully forgot.
things that need to be addressed. For example, there's anything that's going against
Some of them fully forgot.
ability for us to be able to maintain that kind of equality. So I think keeping it simple is really one of the keys, to the point raised earlier, rather than going for big ticket items. It's really something that needs to be inherent among us, and starting from the very basic, always going back to the basics.
Thank you, Editha. As you rightly said, rather than going for the big ticket items, it's important to sort of focus on few key things and make sure that it's rolled out with the right intent and with precision. Yasmin, you've been to some of these new age, new gen, IT companies, and you've worked with very, very eclectic, different kind of workforce at every place. Your experience with this current workforce, what does it tell you? Are they people who are ready to take on or get onto the bandwagon of creating these changes, which are expected to bring about quite long, sustainable advantages for the organization? Or are they here basically for their own shortcuts, quick interests, high mobility, high aspirations? What's this generation looking like? And how do you, from an HR perspective, what do you see them contributing towards what we are talking about today, this very critical aspect about gender?
I mean, that's an excellent question, Devjani, and thank you for asking that. And I think great conversation so far with all the panelists. And thanks to you for keeping the flow going. I know it's been long, but I appreciate it. I would say with regards to where we are today at NextGen, it's a fantastic journey on what we're talking about, right? And I would say we have a very clear DEI-B charter. Thankfully, we have great leadership, which involves the CEO, the CHRO, the managing director in India, who are all on board. So we have executive sponsorship for what we want to do, because I believe as much as we all have ideas, or it's a HR initiative, no initiative, whether it's HR or anything, will be successful if you don't have the sponsorship of the leadership team. And now how far does this go, right? So we have actually got DEI as part of our goals, where all employees get an opportunity to be part of like ERG and have their own journeys. But we're talking about, we're not talking about saying things like having 40% or 50% of the workforce men, women, or gender neutral. I think for long we have actually all our conversations of it making a very genuine effort through leadership and through employees and as HR to make sure our language, our conversation, our communication is very, very mindful of, like I earlier shared, talking about gender neutrality. In fact, for Women's Day, we don't do like a real celebration of Women's Day. It's always gender neutral. So I know I'm being very, very respectful of, what, in general, everybody would do, like you have a rose or you have sweets, you have chocolates, making, women special. I think we gave it to everyone, including men. And we actually talked about stories, right? How, and this was open to all employees, how they view their role. And you didn't say, how do you see women, right? How do they share this responsibility and be equal partners? What are those examples? And there were fantastic stories from men, including my own personal story, where my husband like shares space in the kitchen. In fact, my kids are like, I think they would go to him for snack during the lockdown. It's a very personal story, but I think that's what it is. But in this organization, we're talking a lot about creating this inclusive culture. We're talking about how does one feel belongingness. We talked about equity and equality, right? We are actually talking about salaries. We're talking about, do men and women get paid the same? Is there a difference? What is it? Can we bring it to equal? So I know it's a very large conversation, but I definitely see great traction. We have employee resource groups which are voluntary. So I think one thing we were clear of, the journey, is we won't force people to say, you know what, you have to be part of XYZ group, because it then becomes forced top down. But to evolve bottom up, right? And what employees really feel about it. So for women specifically, we've been sharing and showcasing stories about women leaders in our organization, what their journey has been like, and what the next level of leaders would look like. So we're actually going down to the middle level, and then even showcasing people at the lower levels where they're balancing work and life, and we're talking about work from anywhere, from a culture standpoint, what flexibility means. And I think just showcasing some of these examples on a day-to-day basis is a great way at NextGen. In fact, the theme for Women's Day, Break the Bias, we had fantastic storytelling, just sharing on Slack. How did I deal with a certain bias? Like I think one of my co-panelists talked about promotions, whether I think it was Tina, before they went on maternity, or when they're back, do we award it to them? Like small little examples, hiring women from break, and somewhere I think we are also talking about where's the equal role of a man in all of this, right? So we have board representation of women in India, and globally we're talking about people with color. So I think that's a very different conversation. But we're doing surveys, Debjani. We recently did an inclusivity survey to say, how do we're getting to the grassroots level of an organization, right? How does your manager talk about promotions? What are the conversations of hiring? Do you see that bias? Completely anonymous. So we're collecting this feedback and we're actually acting on it. And HR, our CHRO is driving. You asked about the role of HR. This is on the agenda. Like if you look at it from a strategy, it dovetails into the HR strategy. So we are right at the forefront. One of my team members from HR is a vice chair for DI, and I'm very, very proud of what she and the rest of the ERGs and the leadership of NextGen does. And yeah, most importantly, allyship. We're focusing a lot on allyship. I think we talked about same gender, our female boss, and some of those things, right? So where do you get to talk about these? So small groups where we come and thrash these topics out, where we bust some myths, or we have some great takeaways. I think allyship has been a big topic where we are really focusing on making that stronger and stronger. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Yasmin. That was really, really nice. I mean, in a sense that, very lucid. Simply, you put that down as an agenda point, and that sounded so good. Oh, Amrita, so happy to see you. I was, calling you out like the airport bulletin, but somehow you just vanished into circulation. Sorry about that. We're really happy to have you back. Amrita, I've got two questions coming up for you. Though we are nearing the close, I think the discussion would not be complete without your qualifying on these. We've talked about every aspect of the gender question by now. We've talked about the diversity angle, the fact that equity is far, far away. Inclusion is, yes, we've made a start, we're working towards it. But I think the success of addressing each one of these is a combination of intent and some amount of systemic and procedural matters, putting them in place. Another important thing we all made together here was that it doesn't help to aspire for the sky. It's not about the ambition to achieve too much. It's about common sense, commonplace, bringing small things together, building up the rhetoric, doing reinforcements, and getting that message across so that it can percolate to the length and breadth and every aspect, every extent of the organization. If you were a culture career, if you were a culture advocate, and if you were the consultant brought in from outside, okay, as a third party with a clear mandate of identifying a few key areas in your own organization today where you see a crying need, okay, to make or to fix some things which will help in carrying this particular agenda forward, which ones would they be? And are you already addressing that as part of your overall HR strategy? Or is there something else that needs to come to your assistance?
So I'll start with the note on the airport thing. I'm really sorry I had a bad network, so I had to drop off, unfortunately. But this is a great question, and I think this coincides with the role that I have just recently taken, and I can't agree with you more that my role right now is more like a consultant. It's in the kind of company that I represent. This is a very tech niche domain, right? So it's an obvious factor that gender and as we talk about, women in particular will not be as high as in other companies, right? Because the STEM, as we look at, we are into artificial intelligence, and now we are seeing women representation there, but I don't think we are there yet, right? So that's the equation that I'm talking about. Now, when I step back and I come here and work as HR head, I think the most important point is driving the core values and the core culture, which will make it more inclusive environment, right? So that to me is very unique, and it's very nice to do it right now because we are just in the startup ecosystem. This is not the big agenda, so I'm just trying to push things which are very nuanced. It might not really take the shape of a mothership right now, but this is a gradual movement that we go along, right? So I think that to me is very key. I heard that my co-panelists were talking about how do we have men involved in this journey. I think it is so important that we have men in this journey. I don't think we can do it all alone. I am seeing this Gen Z, and the millennials are really responding to it well. So I guess that's a bigger achievement that we can all achieve. The other thing that I uniquely have instilled in the organization is as we are taking roles in the leadership team, there could be a lot of people in the engineering team, and especially women, who are trying and making their baby steps towards management. I'm trying to make sure that every other woman is pulling another woman, right? It's just not about me representing the women community. It is all of us. So it's like the buddy program that we all have in referral programs and onboarding. It's the same buddy programs that I've initiated, that we will have one another. We are going to hear one another. We are going to be buddies to one another. So I guess those are the things that we are driving. But overall, yes, I see that this is just not an initiative. I have stayed away stating diversity numbers. I think it'll be obvious when the floor is buzzing with a lot of women. So till that time, we are not going to, we won't talk a number. I've stopped giving extra incentives on referral programs because I'm a strong believer that we don't need incentives to have more women at workforce. We don't have to be called out like, hey, you are women, we will give you an extra 15%, 20% or whatever beyond referral bonus to, encourage women in the workforce. So all of that makes us special. I'm just saying we are not going to do it. We don't have to have a special treatment. We are going to walk shoulder to shoulder. We are going to take steps as equal, and we don't need special treatment. So like one of Yasmin was also saying about the kind of break the bias options that we did. We had no women speakers, but we called in all the men to talk about their stories and the influence that women had in their life. So it's just the shift that we are doing right now.
Yeah. Well, that's a fantastic, perspective, because here I hear a robust voice saying, we're going to abrogate, we're going to shun every bit of the special treatment. Okay, it's like that article such and such for such and such place. We need to, sort of disown it now because it needs to be a level playing field. Having said that, do you think this kind of an approach and the voice with which you call for it does run the risk of probably prescribing it as a feminist way of looking at it, something where while you're addressing one side of the gender issue, you're actually tilting more towards the other side? Just a question, maybe playing the devil's advocate.
Yeah, so here is how I would like to answer this. What does being a woman means to all of us? We are just wired differently. Our emotions are at different levels. Our strengths are at different levels. And to question that, do we really need somebody to acknowledge who we are? Do men need an acknowledgement from women on who they are? Or, if I have to make it gender agnostic, do anybody need an acknowledgement? I feel that, gone are those days when we will have to have a category to define us. Gone are those days when we really need to talk about, okay, how much percentage do we have in the leadership team and in general in the workforce? I'm just trying to say that we will pull each other by being co-sisters. We will stand for each other just because we understand each other's emotion. But we don't need any one of us to say what we can achieve and where is the bar. I think that's the leveling that I'm talking about. All that we need is respect. All that we need is to say we are capable. And I think that comes from within. It is to say to all my fellow sisters in the organization saying, don't fear and don't let your limit be your own, restrictions. So be fearless and be limitless. There's no limit. And when you demonstrate on the floor, when you talk about this in your organization, and when you are doing it with conviction, I think the others are just going to watch it. So it's a little different answers, maybe, Devjani, but yeah.
No, I would rather say that it's just added that little flavor which was missing all this time. Whether you want to call it the rum raisin or the Love 21 flavor, but that's what it is. It is missing. Having said that, we're probably just moving towards the closure of the discussion. But before we go, we still need to make a few cardinal points. I'm not going to really ask long questions from here. I don't want, elaborate responses, because I think we've more or less heard a fair share of how we approach or how we think about this particular topic from a thought leadership perspective. And thank you very much for that, because I don't think the audience could have ever expected a gathering as eclectic and intellectual as this, and the kind of takeaways, the kind of experiences that have lent to those takeaways are humongous. So thank you very much for that. But now we come to a little bit of the fun side of it. Okay. Now, when we talk about the gender issue, we also have, the memes and the jokes and the Instagram and every other bit also adding to that entire bandwagon. And there are, different kinds of jargons, there are different kind of people. Sometimes an Instagram influencer who suddenly crops up, and parodies two notes or just a parody of a song, becomes an absolute, icon, and suddenly becomes a gender and, a gender representative. The more we go along with the next gen, I'm finding that these are recurring as we go along. So my little, tidbits, and I'm just wanting to hear from you on this. Do you, and just a couple of, maybe just a couple of sentences. What role do you think social media, and this is a question to each one of you, let's hear your perspective on this one single question. What role do you think social media today, especially with such an impressionable next generation who are also going to become a part of tomorrow's leaders, the leadership that we are so possessive about, we're so passionate about, that we keep debating on it till the cows come home. This next gen, which is really going to inherit this entire thing, where they, with their Instagram world and the social media, how well equipped do you think they are to carry forward the gender agenda?
Hi,
Hi,
Divya.
Sharmila.
Hi, sorry I joined much later. When I was in mute, I was hearing everybody.
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
okay. Doesn't matter. First and foremost, in 1.5 minutes, your introduction, please.
All right. Hi, everyone. This is Sharmila, and I'm based out of Hyderabad, and I represent Micron Technology.
Why? One couldn't have asked for more brevity. Okay, thank you, Sharmila. But you're just on time, I mean, this is really time management to the perfect. Tell us about your point of view on this entire premise of gender equality in your organization today. Is there a group which thinks in this direction, and are you trying to do some cohesive action? Is it an issue in the first place? Do you actually feel it in different ways with respect to policy administration, or maybe the outputs that are coming across to even the bottom line of the company? So, keeping all these factors in mind, where are you with respect to gender, with respect to your organization?
Yeah, sure. Happy to share about Micron Technology, and DEI is at the center of our business. We are a memory company, and in India, we are operating for the past 3 years. We are essentially a 40-year-old company based out of Idaho, and have a center in San Jose. Our CEO, Mr. Mehrotra, he is a big proponent of DEI, and we released our 2022 annual report for DEI as well very recently. Our DEI is not limited to gender. It also talks about several aspects of, diversity, as most of you have talked about. It's pretty similar to, and it's very special to us, especially for Micron India. As we started our operations 3 years back, we focused not only on the gender aspect, but we also focused on other aspects of LGBTQ. We actually have a very specific focus and intervention in hiring PWD, and we have created our setup, our infrastructure in order to accommodate such a requirement. Transgender is supported as an organization. We introduced our policies and benefit around the medical, such that anybody who's looking to have a gender change or making some choices around their sexual orientation, we have a benefit which supports them in this journey.
There has been a lot of initiatives and programs, especially to create awareness. One is you're creating an environment, the amount of awareness that you create, microaggression and conscious bias, unconscious bias is some of the training that are mandatory in our organizations, such that we're not just driving the metrics, but also kind of making sure that employees resonate with these concepts. So they've done, I mean, pretty much everybody I heard, Yasmin and heard Amrita talking about it. I think DEI is at the center of every organization's business. I think we have reached, from the last 2 years, I have spent 16, 17 years in this industry associated with technology companies. Diversity is a lateral portfolio within the HR, but it is not an HR agenda, it is an organization agenda. And it has to be top-driven approach. It cannot be HR-driven. And in order to support that, it's actually it's part of our performance goal for every manager to drive the DEI agenda of the organization. So the commitment is very high. You need 3 things: A, the organization commitment, leadership sponsor, and the programs and benefits that supports all of this. So pretty happy to share that at Micron, we have kind of lay a foundation around that to support DEI, to drive DEI agenda.
Lovely. I think couldn't have asked for a better roundup, to this discussion. And thank you, Sharmila. How beautifully you just outlined in one last statement when you put forth the point that with the right intent and with the right kind of support system, small things that help implement and take the agenda forward, you can actually have the entire workforce within the organization work towards a common goal. Fantastic, and all kudos to you, as well as the top management vision, which I think is absolutely rightly put. Such initiatives and such charters like the DEI cannot be the privilege of only one department. It's not a departmental concern. It's an organizational directive. And when it has to be an organizational directive, the vision and the top man's agenda and the entire CXO momentum has to be built up around it to be able to take it to its ultimate fruition. Thank you, Sharmila, for making the time. Thank you, each one of my wonderful participants, every one of you, for spending almost close to 2 hours and plus a little more with me here on the GWFM platform. As always, GWFM intends to make sure that we do have an engaging topic, and we are all there to contribute to make it into a wonderful discussion. I don't think anybody would have thought differently even today. So thank you so much to all who are still here, as well as to those who have had to drop off because of other exigencies. Thank you, Parthoda, and thank you, Dr. Shiva, for giving us this platform, for creating such a wonderful discussion with all of us here. Thank you.
Thank you, Devjani. Thank you, everyone. Women are always saying, we can do anything that men can do. But men should be saying, we can do anything that women can do. For a starter, I do a lot of things that I think I can. And I would personally feel that this is something to learn. And, this is not a struggle. This is not a struggle. This is not a fight. Because the road to gender equality remains long and ever shifting, particularly when it comes to the nuanced ways gender intersects with race, class, sexuality. But today's influential female voices give us hope that we are headed in the right direction. And thank you, all of you, to have spared time to help us commemorate International Women's Day. And what else do I say? Because the heart doesn't speak. My vocabulary is limited. So this is the only thing that I can do is to bow and say, what a session. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you so much for all the panelists and Debjani. It has been a wonderful job. Great questions. I'm sure that all the panelists have enjoyed sharing their insights and thoughts. Sincerely thank all the panelists and Debjani for taking this roundtable chair. It's been a great experience since last couple of hours. Thank you so much for taking your time out. Thank you.
Next item on the
Thank
agenda
you.
is the closing keynote speech by Mr. Rupesh Tripathi, Partner Head of People, KPMG Global Services Management Private Limited. Rupesh has over 2 decades of experience in HR, encompassing a broad spectrum of areas, including business HR, HR strategy, consulting, talent acquisition and management, leadership development and succession planning, executive coaching, mergers and acquisition, integration and compensation and benefits. He has worked across a diverse range of industries, including banking, consulting, professional services, technology, retail, and manufacturing. In his current role, Rupesh is responsible for the development and execution of KPMG Global Services people priorities. In his last assignment, Rupesh led HR for India region of IHS Market and Information Services firm. He led the merger integration for India after IHS and Market came together in 2016. Prior to KPMG, Rupesh has led HR, as I said, for IHS Market and Accenture's India domestic business, and for Accenture's capability networks, a distributed consulting model, India Node. He has also previously worked with firms such as Citibank, Bharti Retail, and Mercer. He began his career with Steel Authority of India Limited, a stint where he found his calling in the people function. Rupesh is an avid marathoner and also dabbles in multiple interests like biking, oil painting, photography, and digital art. Rupesh is based in Delhi NCR. He has an MBA in Human Resources from Maxillarai Jamshedpur and a Bachelor's of Management Science, Indore University, and he's a certified leadership coach for Life Institute, US. Thank you so much, Rupesh, for accepting our invitation and joining in today.
Partho, first of all, thank you for that elaborate introduction. I actually liked Sharmila's introduction better, but thank you for taking the time and calling me out. So first of all, really glad to be here. I did catch last about 10 minutes of the panel conversation and agree with when Debjani said that I think there's a lot of good work that's happening, and there's a lot of consistency that we heard around what each of the firms are doing around. So I&D is very close to my heart, to the heart of the entire leadership of the firm that I represent, KPMG Global Services, and hence when you, Partho, asked me to come and be a part of this gathering, I was honored to. So I'll briefly talk about what is my take on what do we need to why do we need to invest in this agenda, and also share a bit about our own journey at KGS. And with all humility, I highly doubt that I would share something that you do not already know or are doing yourself. But I do think that these dialogues and these different perspectives and building on each other ideas is how we will continue to evolve this space. So I will try and wrap up in about 15-17 minutes, but I want to share my screen and just share a couple of slides so you don't have to keep staring at. Super. Okay. So talking about why diversity, right? So what is the business case for investing in diversity? I think the most important and often very overlooked reason, just because it is also the simplest, is access to talent. And so now we would all would agree that in the current day and age, talent is the fuel. Every other kind of resource is more easily available today than ever before. So, take capital, technology, infrastructure, all of them can be acquired and replicated relatively easily. But we do need, great people to use these resources and make a success out of it. So why then would we not want to dip into the whole spectrum of talent available, right? Whether it's women, 50% of the population, or LGBTQ, or veterans, or people with disabilities, there is competence and there are befitting people to what we are looking at across all of those talent groups, right? So why then would we want to restrict ourselves to any subcategory? So that's the simplest underlying, business case that we can have, and very similar to, I'm sure, what a lot of you are already doing. At KGS, we put in effort behind specifically targeting these talent pools to augment and fulfill our needs through hiring drives, special referral incentive programs, working with NGOs who can support us in this space, et cetera, et cetera. So that's number one. Second is, and while I'll speak about inclusion in a bit, but once we have created this organization, this environment that is welcoming and has diverse talent to prove it, it creates this virtuous cycle, right? So colleagues from all communities, whether marginalized or mainstream, would want to come and work for a firm that allows them to bring their whole authentic self to work. And it also keeps them longer and helps in keeping them engaged, thereby getting them to perform much better. So just by investing in this agenda, we end up creating a talent magnet of an organization that attracts and retains great talent and catalyzes performance. Right, so that's number two. By doing that, you're actually creating a brand which would help you get the right talent and retain them. At KGS, again, drawing parallels. So like many of you, we also end up doing these engagement surveys annually, and there are questions specific to inclusion that are asked, right? And over the last couple of years, we have been scoring above 90, in that, and we firmly believe that has helped us in attracting and retaining talent, when we go and hire our colleagues. Third one is mirroring the clients that we serve. Now, every business is created to serve a set of customers, and this customer base in itself is super diverse, is very diverse, and is becoming more and more diverse by the day. It only, hence, I would say, behooves us to mirror the client diversity in our workforce as well. Just to give you an example, and this one is not about KGS, but one of my previous organizations, I was once leading HR for the store operations of a retail organization. And our people mission, the way we had articulated it was being the society we serve. And what we did was we ensured that every single of our store followed a prescribed staffing template, which had store associates which looked like or were very relatable to the customers that they would serve. So we would hire housewives, we would hire retired folks, we would hire people with disabilities, we would hire school dropouts, et cetera, in every store. So if any customer walks in, they would have someone who would look a bit like them serving them. And so that I thought was a classic example of mirroring the clients that we serve. And lastly, there's this ton of research that talks about what a diverse team can achieve just due to diversity of thinking, or diversity of points of view, of working styles, of decision-making styles, et cetera, when they sit across the table. And a few research here that you can look at. There was this McKinsey study which said that companies in the top quartile of gender diversity in the executive teams were 25% more likely to experience above average profitability, or that companies with diverse management teams have close to 20% higher revenues due to innovation. And this last one, I'm sure all of you are familiar with, right? The McKinsey Global Institute study, wherein it said that if we were to achieve complete gender parity, $12 trillion can potentially be added to the global GDP. Now, all of these are the reason for us to make sure that we are investing, that we are behind the agenda. Sorry, somebody is not on mute. If you could, please.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank Thank you, Asha and Joseph.
Okay. Quickly, I would take maybe next another 5-7 minutes to talk about what we are doing at KPMG, very similar to the conversation that happened, I think, in the panel before. Now, at KPMG, our function is actually called Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity, and not DEI. And while it may sound like semantics, but we do think that language makes a whole lot of a difference. And hence, we insist on putting inclusion before diversity, even when we name our team or the priority itself. Now, the reason is diversity is relatively easier to achieve, right? So put in energy, put in metrics, investments behind the agenda, and we can hire diverse talent, right? We just go and hire those people and count them. But the only way we can harness the benefits of diversity is by ensuring that this diverse talent is felt valued, and that they are felt valued for the distinct strengths that they bring to the table, as against, right, expecting them to conform and start to look like each other. The way I like to explain this is there was a time we used to use the analogy of melting pot, right? So we say that, as just assimilate a variety of ingredients in one melting pot and make a stew out of it, and that's inclusion. Now, in my view, while various ingredients do lend their flavors to this stew, but they often lose their identity, right? And often stronger flavors start to dominate. So the analogy that I usually go with is of a salad, where we say that all the ingredients maintain their unique flavor, their unique texture, their unique color. They are not forced to look like each other, but are still bound, with this subtle and all pervasive sauce, which in my view is the culture of inclusion. And that culture is much, much harder to create than diversity. It's often a very long journey. It needs to be spearheaded by the leaders, both in words and in action. I think there needs to be consistency in the hardware of an organization, like policies and benefits, and the software like rituals and practices. So we need to be inclusive and be seen as inclusive. We currently are sitting at an overall gender diversity of about 46.5%. Our aspiration is to get to the holy grail of 50-50. We have several BUs or functions. Actually, we are already at 50% or above. We also put in a lot of attention to diversity at top of the pyramid, right? We all know that is usually a tougher one to get to. And while we still have a distance to go there, our director plus women population has grown 2.5 times in last 3 years, significantly faster than the overall growth of our organization. I touched upon the culture. I think for us, it is truly top driven. My CEO, all the C-suite members, business and function heads are vocal ambassadors of this priority. And these leaders, not just speak about the agenda openly, but they also manifest that in behavior. And we help them, the HR team or the IND team helps them with that. We involve them in highly visible programs. For example, one of our business leaders is the face and sponsor of a women mentoring program. We have another leader who's sponsor of our KPMG network of women, as we call it. Our ID council has senior representation from all businesses, both male and female, and is headed by our head of one of the functions. So those are the various ways in which we make sure that the larger organization sees and feels the impact that our leaders are making by investing their own time, energy, and attention to the agenda. Our ID council, this group really supports us in driving the agenda. So they drive the central initiatives and then overlay any business level nuances on top of that. We also have this ally of inclusion, where colleagues have signed up across the board, across the levels, across the functions, to be an ally of inclusion. So this is not just ally of LGBTQ, while we have that separately, but this is signing up for ally of inclusion, saying I am I am ambassador to the cause of creating an inclusive organization, which in turn will support the diversity that we are hiring. And just to close, while I've spoken a lot about gender, given we are celebrating IWD month, we also have LGBTQ and multi-generational workforce and PWD as the other pillars. We are actively working or looking to do more work in the veteran space. We have these ERGs, support work in all of them. We have spent a lot of time in gender-neutral policies and benefits, right? So while maternity benefit is something that exists everywhere, we have said that if you are a primary caregiver, even if you're not, a natural mother, even if you're a father, for example, you can still go and get the entire 6 months leave, right? So that's very useful for single parents, for adopted children, for LGBTQ parents, et cetera, and then the usual insurance for gender reaffirmation, ability to add a partner rather than a spouse, et cetera, and so on and so forth. So those are some of the policies that many more which we continue to evolve. The other important, I think, thing that I would just touch upon is just ensuring that while you're working on that, culture, having ways and means for colleagues to reach out and speak up if they're seeing a behavior that is not in line with our values or our culture. So we have that through our, Speak Up as a platform and a campaign. After the Black Lives Matter movement that started in the US, we created this global platform, a non-stop 72-hour conversation across the world where colleagues participated and spoke about inclusion, racism, experiences, possible solutions, et cetera, et cetera. We call that courageous conversation. And lastly, to round it up, we put in diversity lens on all key people, processes, and metrics, right? So whether it is rating curves or promotion percentages or comp increases, average salaries for the jobs, attrition percentages, all of them, we look at the cuts from, of male and female, just to make sure that there are no unconscious biases that are coming in. So let me end, Partho, by an audience by going back to that original theme of why to invest in IDE. And while there is like I mentioned, a lot of research and reasons that points to the benefits of a diverse organization, we should also be aware that cognizant of the fact that not everything can be converted to dollars in the short term. I think an inclusive workplace translates to engaged colleagues, is attractive to potential and current employees, and hence drives a culture where colleagues are willing to go the extra mile to perform. Partho, with that, back to you. And once again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Rupesh. Thank you so very much. Rupesh had a travel today, so despite all that, he kept his promise of joining us. I'm deeply grateful, Rupesh. Deeply grateful to you.
Thank you once again, Partho.
So now we will go to the felicitation now. But unfortunately, not everyone is around. So what we do is, whoever is around, we will share that. And as of now, we will announce the felicitation category that under which the company or the person has been is being felicitated. And subsequently, we will email the collaterals to all of you. So we will begin with KPMG, since Rupesh is here. We are felicitating KPMG for being a globally diverse organization and its leadership commitment to diversity and inclusion.
Thank you, Partho. Thank you very much.
Then we have First Source Solutions, whom we are felicitating as a gender inclusive workplace. Congratulations for source.
Thank you.
Then we would like to felicitate NextGen Healthcare as a young diversity champion company. Then we come to Airbus. One of, we are felicitating Airbus as a gender inclusive workplace. And for all you organizations and people, we deeply appreciate your leadership team for its outstanding contribution and unfailing support to the causes of diversity, inclusion, and equality, staying focused on creating a gender-inclusive workplace. Amongst the medium-sized companies, we would like to declare ThoughtWorks as a diversity champion for its various initiatives, WAPSI, Limitless, and also being included in the Workplace Equality Index. We are happy to felicitate Tina Vinod and Savita Hortikar representing ThoughtWorks here. We would like to felicitate Radhika Naran, WFM head KPMG, for her commitment, for leadership commitment to diversity and inclusion. Then we'd like to felicitate SAP for being one of the great gender inclusive workplaces. We'd like to felicitate for exceptional strategic leadership, Neeti Mahajan of HSBC. We had Kankana Barua for a very short while, so we are felicitating her company, Healthium MedTech, for building a gender inclusive workplace. We are also felicitating Avatar, the company represented by Amrita Mazumdar, for leadership commitment to diversity and inclusion. If I've missed out on people, I mean, I don't see many here. If I've missed out, I think the best thing would be to also I see Oindrila Banerjee. Oindrila is from Fusion BPO, also one of those companies.
Yes, Parthuda, I'm here. I'm sorry, I joined late, got stuck in a client meeting. Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
So we are amongst the BPO organizations, we are declaring your organization, Fusion BPO, as a diversity-focused company.
Thank you.